Right.
Three circle, right?
Uh-huh.
We call a circle of death at work.
Right, you don't want to see that. You ready?
Give me 1 second.
Pushing you.
We're going live on YouTube as we speak.
The other side.
We're ready to go. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I hereby call the October 11th, 2023 meeting of the Rockbridge County Planning Commission to order. First, we'll have roll call. Commission member Hennis, that's me. Commission member Kramer.
Here.
Commission member Lucas.
Yep.
Commission member Whitmore.
Here.
And Commission member Watkins is absent. In addition to citizens attending the meeting in person, citizens have several options to view or participate in the Zoom meeting webinar as described below. We will do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One, to join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar. The link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. At this time, we will proceed with meeting. We're going to begin with citizen comments, and these would be comments on anything that is not on the agenda for this evening. So do we have anybody signed up to speak?
We do first signed up as Bill Russell.
Okay, Mr. Russell.
Good evening. I'm Bill Russell from Cars Creek District. Thank you. And I also wanted to say thanks for the working group meeting that occurred earlier, because it raised some things I think I have maybe some useful answers for, and these are of a general nature with solar energy installations, generation plants. And some of the issues that were raised up here, I think specifically need to be looked at, and I'm going to raise them in another venue. I think it's very incumbent upon the county to make sure that they have a complete trail of parties of interest in each application for special use exemptions before the county. Because I'm looking at some items on here where I found 6 different names for the same party relatively within a 3-year period. And I think it would be useful to require those parties to give the information about who and what entities may control them up the line, what businesses they've operated under, and where. It's not difficult to track them, but it's also not easy. They have between 2 of the parties, there's 6 different states involved too. And I also find one, and I'll address this separately. I'll just put that out there on decommissioning under a separate issue here. I think one of the things that at least I didn't hear discussed that you may want to look at with regard to toxic panels, and there are significant numbers of solar panels that can be toxic, are EPA regulations and specific references to compliance with RCRA that the county, I think, needs to put in any obligations they impose upon a proposed operator here. They need to be in compliance with those federal regulations. And they impose also, I think, specific, I don't want to say burdens, but obligations on the county in terms of understanding what kind of disposal operations they'll have. that's my general comment. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak in person? Are you standing to speak?
Mr. Steve Hart, come on down, sir.
Steve Hart, Cars Creek. Thank you for the opportunity to attend the working session earlier. I thought a lot of good points were raised, a lot of good questions were asked. There's some things that I think were not covered that should be covered. And if I am speaking to something that has been covered and I don't know about it, please correct me. I apologize for my ignorance. First, solar fields, commercial entrance required. I have to have a commercial entrance on my farm for my farmer's market. So I think it's only proper that all commercial activities should do that. How do we tax this? Is it eligible for land use taxation? When do we do the rollback taxes? Again, we need to have a standard for that. Can they go in the county landfill? That was just raised. How much of our land are we willing to commit to this? And I know it was mentioned that Rockingham County did this and I was present with them. I discussed that with them because at some point we're not making energy for us anymore. We're making energy for somebody else. What type of land do we put these on? Generally, we want to avoid prime farmland, but that means it's flat. We don't have much of that of anything in Rockbridge County. But farmland of statewide importance is really good farmland in Rockbridge County. And how much of our land of that do we really want to commit? What if the stormwater plans stormwater retention basins prove to be too small? What do we do after the fact? Because I'll tell you that some of our modeling on this is probably not very well developed yet. And it's just because we don't have a lot of experience. What area do we talk about? And this is again came out of Rockingham County. Is the area of the field the area under panel? Is it the area of the actual panels themselves, or is it the area within a fence? I will tell you, they defined it originally as the area under panel, and they came back, and I heard one of the people that planned this, we should have done it area within the fence. It actually makes more sense if you do it that way. What are we going to do with land that the NRCS has determined is highly erodible land? If I get an HEL designation on my land, there's certain things that the NRCS doesn't allow me to do under our conservation best practices. Grading and land disturbance activity estimates. Need to see a pre and post grading plan, pretty much standard things. All of these, and there's probably more questions that we need answers to. And not only do we need the questions, we kind of need to know what the acceptable range of answers are. What's our limit? What are we willing to do? What are we not willing to do? And I've spoken at several of these. I'm not sure the number we're up to, 6, 8, 10, something like that. This is not an exception anymore. This is becoming its own rule. And when we start doing this, we actually need consistency. The developers need consistency, the neighbors need consistency, the citizens need consistency. And I think engaging in a process that can give us that, whether it's an ordinance, a standard set of questions or something, is actually a precursor to moving forward on any of these. Because if we don't have a plan, we always end up somewhere where we don't want to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart.
Mr. Max Smith.
Thank you, members. Max Smith, Buffalo District. I'm here first of all as the president of Rockbridge County Farm Bureau, and Farm Bureau took a stance on this also, and Virginia Farm Bureau has too. And we're not opposed to solar fields. I prefer fields, not farms. It's getting them to do with a farm, but not on prime land. That was the Virginia Farm Bureau policy. Is not on prime land. Now, I also was here this evening to the work session and heard the comments that the other two gentlemen have heard, and I really do think we need to go back and get the citizen group together like we started out 3 years ago. I think it was before COVID. Wasn't it, Chris, that we?
I don't know if it's that long ago, but it's been a while.
It's
I
been a
agree with that.
while. So we can come up with the best ordinance possible. And I sat there where y'all did for 10 years. I was on the board of supervisors for 8 years. And I know what it takes to make a good ordinance. And it is the community coming together with all the input, pros and cons and everything else. And we will have a good results if you go back and start that process so we can have the best in the state is what I would try to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Mr. Lee Merrill.
Longtime Rockbridge resident, but now living in Lexington. I just want to concur with Mr. Smith's analysis that you've got to get focused here. This is the first waves of several generations of these that you're going to have to confront. The ordinance needs to be immediately brought up to the standard that was just described to you. The tools are available, the resources are available as soon as the political decision makers say this is a priority. So please give the support to your staff and the supervisors in making this a first order of business, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That is all that signed up, but we will recognize anyone at this time that was not able to sign up.
Okay, do we have anybody else in the audience that would like to speak? Do we have anybody online? Zoom or phone?
If there's any attendees that would like to make a citizen comment, please feel free to use your raise your hand button now. Not seeing any, turn the floor back over to the chair.
Okay. Agenda item number 3, approval of the September 13th, 2023 meeting minutes. Did you all have an opportunity to review those? Any questions, amendments, changes?
I make
Okay.
a motion to accept.
Okay, make a motion to accept as presented.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. We are now ready for the board reports. So staff.
Yes, at their September 2nd September meeting, the Board of Supervisors approved the zoning text amendment pertaining to childcare in the agricultural transitional zone and allowed that by special exception. This would be your traditional, not your in-home daycare, of course, with 4 or less children, I think it is, but more of a business model type thing. So that was approved per Planning Commission's recommendation. At September 20th, 2023, the Board of Zoning Appeals met to approve the July 19th, 2023 minutes and some updates, modifications to the electronic meeting policy. The TCO did not meet in September.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 5, Volcano Energy LLC. Application for a special exception permit to develop a 5 milliwatt, what is that? MW? AC solar project, megawatt. Okay, there we go. Solar project. The property is located on the south side of Moore's Trail, Route 794. We have a staff presentation.
Bear with me, I'm going to share my screen, get everyone oriented, and then turn it over to the applicant. Volcano Energy LLC has made an application for a special exception permit to develop a 5 megawatt AC solar project. The property is located on the south side of Moore's Trail, further identified as 794, approximately 0.14 miles west of the intersection of Moore's Trail and Steele's Fort Road. Steele's Fort is further identified as 706. The property is owned by Sylvia G. Moore and further is identified as tax map number 40-A-1. Portion of the property, what we have here is the Moore property is outlined in green here. And then the outline of the fence, the proposed fence for the solar array is outlined in magenta with the access roads being shown in gray. A portion of the property, I'm going to turn on my zoning layer as I'm chatting. A portion of the property is zoned in the agricultural and general use districts. That's going to be the A2 zoning district in white on the screen, while the remainder of the property is zoned in the agricultural transitional districts. That is the light pink on the screen, excuse me. Per section 603.03-9 of the regulations, public utilities are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. Per section 603B, period 03-14 of the regulations, public utilities are used by special exception in the AT agricultural zoning district, agricultural transitional zoning district. The proposed 5 megawatt solar site is on approximately 75 acres of the Moore tract, again, further identified as 40-A-1 and consisting of 149 acres, 149.127 acres total per tax records. Some of the more tract is currently used for crop production, while other portions of the tract are used for hay production. The portion of the tract that is proposed to be the solar field is currently used for hay production. The project is located within the tourism corridor overlay, such as Route 11 in this case. The special exception permit is for the proposed use of the property, and the site plan will be required to be reviewed and approved by the TCO board. Staff will update the planning commission accordingly. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Miss Walling, with Volcano Energy LLC. Have you bear with me? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pull up their presentation. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening. Okay, absolutely. I will try. Hi, my name is Alexandria Walling. I am here to represent the applicant Volcano Energy. We are proposing a 5 megawatt solar distribution facility. That means that this is a facility that will be interconnected to the existing utility infrastructure, Dominion Energy to be exact. And a distribution level solar project is considered to be a smaller scale project, not to be confused with a transmission level project. Chris, thank you. Obviously went through a lot of the key facts of the project. I won't bore you with going through all of it, but I will need to repeat some of that. So as I said, I am here representing the applicant Volcano Energy. This is the solar site. Everything with permitting and everything will be connected with Volcano Energy. I have with me tonight members of my team that I may defer to for some of our questions and part of the presentation. Part of the people that are here, we also have a representative from Aspen Power who does own the LLC. They are committed and they are the long-term owner of the project. And they will also be the operations and maintenance manager. In conjunction with that, many people have been approached by Innovative Solar. We are the developer and the construction partner on that. So that is a little bit unique. Sometimes you have 4 separate parties. We are 2 parties that have been working together for coming on a little over 5 years now. So we work together in all those aspects to try to add as much expertise in our particular portion of that. So for this particular site, we would like to say in selection of the site, there was a lot of work that went in prior to just picking a farm and deciding to go there. There was a lot of research into the existing utility infrastructure for locations that had capacity and needed load. Having considered that, we select our site and then we go through a screening process of the site. So many things to consider. We do investigations to figure out environmental constraints. We do take into consideration site visibility and the impact and try to make plans for those. What I would like to present tonight is that we remember that this is the conceptual plan. We are absolutely open to more feedback and a lot of the designs that will continue to progress in the permitting process into the Board of Supervisors will be integrated into this plan for other opportunities to be reviewed again. I would also like to point out that in the environmental constraints that were considered on this particular farm area, I know that there is a lot of concern about the prime farmland. We have identified that, and we also identified the existing forested land coverage. And we avoided that in our site planning. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. So on the next two slides, I've actually provided it's the same site plan because it's a little bit difficult to put these on the slides. We do have an aerial view and we also have a black and white view, which you hold those in front of you. What I would like to point out on these is, as we said, this is primarily tax parcel 40-A-1, which is currently zoned as A2 and AT. The majority of the site is zoned as AT. The majority, our portion where we're proposing the site is currently used for hay production. The remainder of the property will be available for continued agricultural operations. It is also located in the South River Magisterial District in the northern Rockbridge County area, basically adjacent to Route 11, approximately half a mile from I-81 and situated between Great Road and Morse Trail. So what I would like to bring your attention to, and again, this is the same site plan, just another view in case that's easier for other people to see. We have considered setbacks. We have 65 feet setbacks from Morse Trail. We have 50 foot from the side and rear portions of the premises, which I would like to point out that is still land that is owned by the landowner. But along the property lines between the solar arrays and the existing residences, we have a 75-foot setback instead of the required 50 foot. The closest residence is over 250 feet from the nearest solar array, and the arrays are over 500 feet from the closest state highway. In reviewing this site, you will notice within the setback area, we do have highlighted in green and in red our proposed landscaping. In addition to the existing vegetation, which we will maintain, we are proposing a single row of trees. And we are additionally proposing a double row of trees at the break in the existing vegetation buffer that is near Great Road. So that would be the most possible for the visual impact there. Excuse me, just one moment. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I will also note that our project narrative did note that the project structures would be no more than 35 feet. We stated 35 feet because that was a standard. Our standard that we couldn't go above, we were just pointing that out. However, our facility will not be over 15 feet. So I'd just like to go ahead and clarify that. So having said that about the landscape buffers, we have tried to provide some renderings of the places that we find might have the most impact and just give a general idea of what the community members can anticipate to see. So as we mentioned, we've proposed the double row of evergreen trees here at Great Road. The depiction on the left will be what we expect to see at planting, and then the depiction on the right is at maturity. We engaged with the community and also were requested to provide a rendering. This is actually on the south side of North Lee Highway Road, Highway, excuse me. So this rendering, it's a little bit difficult to see because it's over 800 feet from our project. So this is where there is a break in the existing vegetation. And as we said, we're going to do some supplemental planting to provide one row of, we'll be proposing one row of evergreen trees there. In our plans, now these are again, very early preliminary plans, but we would like to highlight the fact that we will be going through very rigorous stormwater management planning. This will be reviewed by the ADEQ, and it also has to be approved by the county. I do have our civil engineer that can speak in better detail to this, but just in a general discussion, we will continue to plan for this, and it will also include temporary erosion and sediment control devices. And And those can be diversion ditches, temporary sediment basins, silt fence, velocity control, amongst other things. You will notice if you refer back to the site plans, we do have proposed areas where we anticipate to have retention ponds. Again, this is preliminary, but we wanted to make sure that we do have room to accommodate what we expect in our experience of development, to go ahead and have room for what we think will be the required measures there. In addition to these plans, there are permanent stormwater control devices. These will be reviewed by Rockbridge County and installed to reduce stormwater runoff rates below the pre-development levels. Additionally, reduce phosphorus discharge from the site, meeting again the Commonwealth's limit standards. These devices may include infiltration basins, grass swells, dry swells with bioretention treatment media, stormwater retention and detention basins, and preservation of forested land. Again, we do have our civil engineer. I'd like to give him a chance when I'm done to speak a little bit more onto these. In addition to our civil engineer, we also have counsel with us. We believe that we are in compliance with the county's comprehensive plan. We have made references to certain sections of that comprehensive plan, and just would love a chance to really highlight the benefit that we think we can bring to the community. We know that there are multiple concerns, and we'd love to engage with you guys on any of that. I'm going to skip over this so that council can actually address those when I'm completed. We do also want to share that the effect on the community and the neighborhood character. We do understand that solar farms can bring some concerns and some fear. And we would like to be there to kind of assist and listen to the community on what they're looking for there. Some studies, we do have a lot of supporting studies that we're happy to submit as supplemental materials if necessary, but we find that solar farms are a good passive neighbor. Our company is committed in our construction. We have a sustainability standard that we have to adhere to. And we also work for pollinator habitats. In some sites, we know that it's something that is talked about. In our seeding for the entire site, we include pollinator native seeding. So you will see some pretty flowers in some areas, but even underneath the panels in that area, the seeding that we put there is pollinator friendly, it is native, and it's intended to help with the soil retention there. We have found with these pollinators that we are finding regeneration and biodiversity under these sites. And we're also seeing some benefits to some of the neighboring agricultural lands from the addition of the new flora and fauna. Our particular designs will use simple pile-driven post rack design. This does not require cement, and it is a much faster process, so we'll have a limited time of sound disturbance. I'm sure you've heard it before. Solar can bring diversified incomes, primarily for the landowner, of course, but also for the community. I have not included a presentation on the tax benefits because those are still being worked out. And this is something that we're also open to negotiation with the community. So there, obviously, there's definitely different ways that we can address that. And we're committed to signing an agreement to meet what the community needs. Again, just want to talk about the neighborhood character. It is a passive, secure neighbor with low traffic impacts. When you look at the life of the project, there will be traffic during construction. That will be a limited amount of time. The vegetative screening that we are proposing is, in addition to maintaining what is already there. As a company, again, we are committed to sustainable practices, and we do recycle our panels. And it is a quite rigorous setup. And if you want more information, we can provide supplementary material about that. And just wanted to again say, even though we said no higher than 35 feet, our facility will not be more than that. We find that our low profile panels are typically lower than mature corn stalks. For this particular site, we are going to try every measure that we can to avoid any grading. So there may be a little bit difference in some lines of panels and things like that, but it will not be anything too major. We also have attempted to reach out to the neighborhood and the neighbors. We also plan after this hearing to have a community meeting, inviting everyone along. With the lack of the ordinance, we thought it would be good to give a public forum, have feedback from the permitting offices, and then be able to integrate that with the community. We have observed other feedback through our landowner and social media and things like that. So we took those into consideration and just wanted to again highlight, we avoided the prime farmland on the property. And we are also avoiding the existing forested timber coverage areas. At the same time, the land, we're not buying the land, we are renting it from the landowner so they can maintain ownership of their family farm and obviously observe their rights to utilize the rest of the land as they see fit. We have increased setbacks greater than the Rockbridge County requirements along the property lines bordering the residences. And again, added the proposed double row of evergreen trees where we thought that there was going to be the greatest impact. In considerations of the access road, we do understand there will be some impact, but we did look at the site and try to figure out the route of least impact on the least amount of people. And that's where we went ahead and put it on Moore's Trail. We've got to make a longer access road even for ourselves, but it's going to have the least impact. Our civil engineer can talk a little bit more about that, where it has off of Lee Highway, it will be less impact for turn in at the road there rather than creating a new one that is also closer to even more neighbors. I'm sure I've forgotten a few things here, but if I could have, if it's okay, I would like to let our civil engineer speak for a moment, and also our counsel and Neil from Wiregill. Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. I'll just leave that as is. Good evening. My name is Sean Below. Nope. Oh, and we'll need it. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Sean Malloy. I work with Kimley Horn and Associates. We're a civil engineering firm. I've been practicing civil engineering in Virginia since 2010. Been doing solar specifically in Virginia since 2016. I've worked on projects anywhere from 3 megawatts all the way up to 500 megawatts, both on this early stage development like we're here talking about tonight, but also all the way through full civil construction plans and seeing those projects get constructed by contractors. Ali hit a lot of the high points tonight, and I'm sure we'll be back up here maybe to discuss some of the other comments or thoughts that y'all may have as well. I just wanted to touch on the access real quick as well. So when looking at construction vehicles, most of our vehicles are going to come in on 18-wheelers. So very typical construction deliveries of equipment, panels, racking, those types of things. So we won't need any special permits typically for those. And when we were looking at the access, Steele's Mill or Steele's Ford Road has a median break in Route 11, and there's already left turn lanes and right turn lanes there, which will help facilitate construction traffic to get off of Route 11 onto Steele's Ford, and then obviously onto Moore's Trail. So that was a key for us. Our construction schedule is about 6 to 12 months, and there will be a peak time of deliveries. We think that'll be maybe 2 months long. So even during that relatively condensed time, we wanted to make sure that, you know, we weren't going to stack up on Route 11. And if we got a direct access point off Route 11, it would have been more complicated and probably would have had more of effect on the public. Related to the grading, this comes up a lot when it comes to stabilization and topsoil and things like that. The thing I wanted to mention there is every year it seems like tracker technology is advancing. So the trackers are basically the systems we use under the panels that rotate the panels as the sun moves throughout the day. And the tracker technology is evolving to conform more to the land. So they're becoming more articulating. The pile adjustments can be done more to absorb the change in grade in the system, in the steel system, rather than doing more grading. So we're very familiar with all those leading edge technologies. We utilize those in our design based on what the technology is selected by the owners. And we integrate that into our grading plans to minimize grading, minimize the movement of topsoil so that we can maintain any existing vegetation that is there today, but also minimize any grading we have to do to implement this system. I'll stop there and we feel to, I'll have time later for any questions that you'll have. So thank you.
Thank you.
And you want to come up? Okay.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Ann Neal Cosby, and I'm a land use attorney at Wire Gill. I'm proud to be here representing the applicant. I'm going to speak very briefly because it's the legalese portion of the presentation about the comprehensive plan, and in particular, of course, one of the planning commissioner's roles in reviewing this application would be to determine whether the application is substantially in accord with the comprehensive plan, and that's pursuant to state law, and it's Virginia Code 15.22232. So it's usually called a 2232 review. So one of your roles is to decide whether the application is substantially in accord with the comprehensive plan so that you can satisfy that state law mandate. But then also, of course, is the application for purposes of the special exception permit in conformance with your comprehensive plan. And we've put information in the application. I did a deep dive, if you will, on the comprehensive plan. And the, with regard to the land use, the map, this area is designated on the map as a rural, in a rural area. But if you look at the rest of the map, it is located just west of areas designated as institutional and village areas. So very close to those areas, and also close to areas that have been designated as interstate interchange areas. And not surprisingly, those are the areas around Interstate 81 and 64. And as you've seen, this project is just south of Interstate 81 and north of 11. So while the property is designated under the comp plan as rural, it is surrounded literally by interchange exchange areas, institutional areas, and these village areas. And so what does that mean? In the comprehensive plan, institutional areas are areas applicable to densely populated institutional areas, including universities, colleges, public school campuses, and governmental campuses. Village service areas are characterized by the presence of existing development, accommodating road networks, and existing or proposed access to public water and sewer. Roughing is determined to be such an area. The types of uses allowed would include mixed residential, retail, civic, parks, rec, and most importantly, small scale industrial. So again, sort of higher density within all of those areas. So while we want to protect agriculture, this is not, you know, in a primary residential part of the county. So with regard to the location, we believe it's consistent with the character of the comprehensive plan. Next, we look at the goals of the plan, and in particular, the comprehensive plan, Chapter 5, economy, and Chapter 9, land use. The application and the proposed use satisfies various goals in the economy chapter of the comprehensive plan. And those would include encouraging, I'm not going to read all of these. There are some in these slides, but I know there's a lot of people that want to address this. But encouraging industrial, technological, education, business development to provide jobs, increase personal income, and increase the tax base. So that goal is satisfied. And of course, attracting new business. The proposed project specifically aligns with the county's strategy of supporting the development of green energy related jobs and their associated educational programs, and to support related projects that are compatible with the environment and existing land use. And certainly renewable energy in an area like this on the distributive scale size versus a utility scale certainly meets that goal. With regard to land use, the development of the project on the proposed property satisfies a number of the objectives. Agricultural, from the comprehensive plan, agricultural soils of the highest quality should be preserved as an important natural resource. The soils on this property are actually identified as being moderately productive soils based on the maps. So again, and you've heard Ali say that we've been very intentional in trying to preserve prime farmland, and again, identifying what types of soils, would be affected in this area. The comprehensive plan discourages the development of permanent structures in areas situated within the 100-year floodplain. The project is located outside of the floodplain. It also avoids historic landmarks and steep slopes. The project will be designed, landscaped, and buffered to preserve the visual quality of the surrounding areas. And lastly, the proposed project is an appropriate transitional use given its location between the two interstate exchanges. So again, of the various land use goals, the project, we believe, is substantially in accord with those goals in the economy. And also just given its location, makes a lot of sense as a transitional use between sort of the higher density uses as you move out into the more rural areas of the county. So I'm happy to answer any of these questions, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, is that, we ready to move on? There we go. We're ready to move on to the public hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
Unless, do you guys have questions for any of these people yet, or do you want to move on to the public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's see. At this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically here to speak? I'm guessing there are.
There is. First up is Mr. Robert Moore with Mr. Tim Clark on deck next.
And I just, before everybody starts, I want to say two things. Remember, there's a 3-minute time limit. So you'll see that, we're not trying to be rude, but we've obviously got a lot of people. Also, if you're going to restate something that's been stated, you're welcome to come up and just say, I agree with Mr. Whoever. But if you have something new to add, obviously we want to hear that. So just in the interest of time, just keep that in mind. So Mr. Moore, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Robert D. Moore. My sister-in-law is the one that wants to put this solar panel farm out there. I think it's imperative that we go back and follow the lineage of the Moore farms. My grandmother bought the farm on Road 11 over here beyond the brewery in 1911. She had 3 sons. Robert D. Moore, John Scott Moore, and Harry Chambers Moore. Harry Chambers Moore married Margaret Bell. Reason I'm telling you that, that's my mother and father. They had 4 boys and 1 girl. And when my father died, my uncles, John Scott Moore and Robert D. Moore, gave my mother the rest of the place. Now to get back to, I had the power of attorney for my mother. She was not well. She had worked in a dairy, helping my brother run a dairy. I told my brothers and sister that we ought to give the home place on Road 11 to my brother John Moore, John Scott Moore. We call him Will. The family does. And we did that. We gave the farm to him. He found out at the upper end of Moore's Trail, there was a farm for sale. So he bought it. And I mean, he's a farmer. He found out that one to the east of him was for sale. So he bought that one. His theory was they're not making any more land. And then John got sick. He had open heart surgery. And he passed away in 97. That left, he had 3 heirs. Myself, Robert D. Moore, William Thomas Moore, and Betty Ann Ferguson, my sister. We got together and decided we had 3 farms. There wasn't any use to try to making money off your brother or your sister. So my sister took the home place on Road 11 here at the brewery. I took the one nearest interstate. And by the way, I've got 0.8 of a mile of interstate along my farm. So, I mean,
Right.
it's going to remain a farm.
Thank you. Sorry, your time is up. Do you have somebody else that is here to speak on your behalf, or we go into the next person? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tim Clark, and on deck would be Judy Clark. Yes, and then you're next. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Board members, I'm Tim Clark. I'm an adjacent landowner to proposed solar site. Looking over this, looked at it, the Volcano Energy Capital Exemption Permit application states on page 8 that it abides by the county's comprehensive plan strategy, stating that agricultural soils of the highest quality should be preserved as an important natural resource, and states that the soils of the proposed site are identified as being moderately protective soils. Quote, the application's assertion that the site contains only moderately productive soils stands in stark contrast to the National Cooperative Soil Survey report, which shows that this proposed site has the potential exemptional agricultural yield. Though the proposed 46-acre site will not be on prime farmland, it will be placed on farmland designated as farmland of statewide importance, which has potential per acre crop yields of 170 bushels of corn and 4.5 to 6 tons of alfalfa hay. In comparison, prime farmland has a potential per acre yield of 200 bushels of corn and 6 tons of alfalfa hay. Considering this information, the application to strip this farm of its productive topsoil will permanently destroy it. Turning it into a solar field should not even be up for consideration by the Planning Commission, as it flies directly in the face of the county's comprehensive strategy of maintaining and preserving agriculture soils of the highest quality as an important natural resource. Please vote on this project for the future of farmers of Rockbridge County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Judy Clark, and on deck would be Art. Thank you. I'll pass this out.
Like to thank, or I'm Judy Clark. I'd like to thank the committee for having our concerns, hearing our concerns. I oppose the volcano energy project of Morse Trail. The Fairfield project seemed to have opened Pandora's box. It is a perfect visual of ruination that could be duplicated 4 miles down the road. The Mackey's Lane project laid a strong foundation for future oppositions by providing concrete factual points of consideration. Our supporters here have done the same. I'd like to focus on how this property affects my family's quality of life. Like many of my neighbors, this project is literally in our backyard. For us, it's by our driveway, behind our house, and if you consider the road in front of us, our land value will plummet. And who wants to be mostly surrounded by an industrial site? The entrance off Morse Trail, emphasis on trail, as the name implies, is a narrow gravel road with 2 blind curves. We have to pull off the grass to let the farmers pass. I routinely take my granddaughter to school, which is right at the beginning and end of the workday. The proposed zoned Buffalo Creek Boys School will have their entrance off this road. The proposal states 6 to 9 months or 6 to 12 months construction traffic. This will include trucks, loaded transfer trucks, and large equipment. And I'm concerned and afraid for us all. Per the proposal, the retention ponds on the west side of the complex are located in the vicinity or near the wet weather spring that flows into Moores Creek. Extensive studies have been done by the Division of Environmental Quality as part of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. These watersheds are likely tied into our well system. Like most of our neighbors, we have a well. Our well is about 180 feet deep and was mostly lined due to the pockets of ledge and cavernous-like areas. When water was hit, we were getting about 150 gallons per minute. According to the well driller, we are on a lake. What will happen to our family's source of drinking water when the proposed systems fail? This includes runoff, pounding of the pilings, retention pond overflow, and them not being adequately lined. Our peace and tranquility will be gone. Dust and debris from the construction and earth moving areas will be relentless with the constant wind on this farm. It will prove to be detrimental to our health, home, and outdoor activities. This farm will be destroyed by the industrial site, and the decommissioning is equally devastating. Topsoil removal.
Thank you.
Could you spell your last name when you come up here, please?
A-U-E-H-N, A-U-E-H-N-N-E. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm Mark Keeney, South River District. I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to be sorry if I had talked fast. In December of 2022, a study was prepared for the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality by Wetland Studies and Solutions Incorporated and James Madison University. In that study, it was noted that Moores Creek is listed as impaired due to water quality violations of general aquatic life standard, and that excess sediment was identified as the primary stressor in Moores Creek. The study notes that impervious cover around the truck and repair station in Rafine has grown significantly over the past 15 years, leaving Moores Creek with significantly less of an opportunity for recovery. In addition, when rainfall amounts exceed the capacity of the soil to infiltrate the water, the excess water runs off and contributes to erosion. The soil groups found in Moores Creek watershed indicated a naturally slow infiltration rate due to a high water level, high water table, rather than a lack of infiltration capacity. The Virginia Mercury in 2022 reported that there have been several high-profile cases relating to solar projects concerning sediment pollution. The most notorious being the Essex Solar Project in Essex County, which led to a $245,000 fine. More recently, Dominion Energy's Belcher Solar Project was fined $50,000 when stormwater runoff in 2022 or 2020 flowed into Harris Creek in Louisa County. On March 29th, 2022, the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality announced a policy change regarding runoff from solar panel projects, quote, to safeguard the protection of downstream waterways and properties, as well as ensure consistency with EPA's Chesapeake Bay program, unquote. Under the old policy, only solar panel support posts and beams were considered impervious areas. However, the approach had potential to underestimate post-development runoff and a runoff rate for solar panels. Under the new policy, solar panels are to be considered impervious areas when performing post-development water and quality calculations. The stated proposal states that the stormwater and erosion control features included in the volcano energy project are designed to meet the county and state requirements, but it does not specify which requirement, old or new, are being used in the design. Regardless of whether the current design would meet the new requirements, and the inevitable runoff and erosion at the proposed solar project could have a further detrimental effect on water quality and water temperature in the South River watershed and its fishery. I believe the project would not be worth the risk to already impaired Morris Creek watershed, and therefore I oppose it.
Thank you. Good timing.
Next up is Chris Ballman with Jeff Wallace on deck.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Chris Ballman. I'm from the Walkers Creek District. I'm not practicing law anymore, but I'm a tax attorney by training. And over the last decade since I've been here, Board of Supervisors for this county, Botetourt, Augusta on several occasions have asked me to come and present. In this case, Ms. Clark asked me to come and talk to you. And you say, well, why is there a tax attorney here who wants, or a former tax attorney here who wants to talk about a solar project? And the reason is because there is no solar project. This is all that this exists. The only reason it will ever happen or is even being planned is because of taxes. It's because of the investment tax credit, and it's because of the deductions and the accelerated schedules that are currently being put forward by the IRS. And you say, oh, okay, what's the impact there? Well, the impact is this. This county needs to know who they're going to be dealing with, what types of entities they're going to be dealing with. Are they going to have any ability to know who those entities are down the future, or any control over those entities? And the answer to that is no. Right now, if they've set this up properly, and I'm assuming they have, it will never matter to them if any solar energy is produced. As long as it's operational, they will qualify for the code. Right now, in these code, this changes with each iteration and new passage of one of these giant omnibus bills. But right now, there's a 5-year period where the company is going to be able to get its investment tax credit back and advanced depreciation or accelerated depreciation, meaning they get all their money back. So what are they going to do after that? Well, then they're going to sell it. They're going to sell it to another LLC, and that LLC is going to get advanced depreciation. And after 5 years, they're going to sell it to somebody else. And each one of these LLCs are going to be less legitimate, farther removed, and you are going to be sitting in a situation where you have an LLC that's an alphanumeric number that means nothing, that you don't know who owns it because it's registered out of Delaware. And you've got to think about, are we going to be able to enforce any of these rules against those individuals? Can we find these individuals? And if we do find them, will they simply walk away? I think about this. This is when you usually have a business, you have a business that wants to be in business. They want to sell tires, or they want to build a customer base. Here, they don't need any of that. Think about, imagine having to deal with, regulate, or interact with an entity that has no fear of being sued because it can simply collapse the LLC and disappear. It has no fear of reputational damages, has no ties to this community. That's what we're getting. That's if nothing goes wrong, that's what we're getting. Now, what will probably happen, and what has happened consistently, 12th year maybe, if we're lucky, things are going to start to go wrong. It's going to start leaching in the water. All of a sudden, as we heard earlier, there is a lake underneath this land. That lake is ruined. Now we have a brown site. Okay, so who do we go after? That LLC vanishes the minute they know they can't make money. Property owner is gone. You have no one to seek redress. The county will have to take the property, and you will own an environmental disaster. That is what this is structured for. Thank you. I'll stand for the questions.
Jeff Wallace and Brian Duckworth on deck.
I live across from the interstate from where this is going, and this has got China tangled all around it. So I'm opposing it. I think a lot of people here are opposing it. If I try to pull this off in my business, I get fired.
Thank you.
Brian Duckworth, followed by Bill Russell.
Thank you, members of the council. I'm Brian Duckworth. I am a recent move from North Carolina to this beautiful county. And I believe I'd like to just say a little bit about that. My grandfather always was looking for good land, and this is good land. And we should be stewards of this good land for our generations to come. And things like this are unnecessary, and our farming community, they're all behind us right now. We're coming into defense of them to see that these things are not done to this beautiful land. When people come up through this area to tour, to see, they want to see leaves, they want to see beautiful landscapes, and they don't want to see solar panels. And I might add, these folks here have already said and showed the fact that, and are embarrassed by the fact of what these things are going to be, as nothing but an eyesore. So I vehemently oppose this. I defend my neighbors, and I ask that you consider this for our future generations and for our local folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Russell, followed by Steve Hart.
Bill Russell again. I rise to oppose this. And it speaks directly to what I spoke about earlier as far as the details of following a trail of multiple LLCs and corporations. And they, in their presentation, indicated that they were owned by Aspen Power. But there was an operating agreement with, I believe it's Innovation Solar in Indianapolis. Before it was owned by Apple, apparently it was controlled by Safari Energy, which was listed as the principal business address for Volcano. At the same time, your application shows their principal business address to be Indianapolis, where Innovation is. So I'm not sure who actually controls this. It doesn't look like Volcano is anything other than a holding company transferring the project.
Thank you.
Steve Hart, followed by Tom Lackey.
Steve Hart, I'm a farmer in Carrs Creek. I also have a PhD in civil engineering. I've been a Virginia professional engineer for 30 years. I have taught infrastructure courses, which I wrote at both West Point and VMI for over 10 years. I only mention that because it's relevant to the comments that I'm about to make. One of the things we hear when advocating for solar fields on agricultural land is that, well, after we're done, it can always be returned to agricultural land. This is simply not true. When you consider the Alexander Farm in Fairfield, the soil type there is 22C, Frederick Silt Loam. There's the soil survey for it. The soil is 74 inches thick. Over 10 feet of soil have been moved. That soil no longer exists. That farmland of statewide importance no longer exists. It is simply not there. The soil survey for that site is not accurate. The site in question, the soil is type 25C, Fredericksburg Watala complex. So there's two different types of soils there. Loam ranges goes down to about 16 to 24 inches, depending on which part of the soil you have there. If you disturb that, it doesn't come back. Now, I had a lot of education in civil engineering, and they never taught me about agricultural soils. I've learned that since then. An agricultural soil is a precious, fragile thing. It's not just the dirt, it's the water, it's the microflora, it's the microfauna, it's the fungus, the bacteria. It is so much going on in that soil that we are only beginning to understand. And when you go in and disturb that, it doesn't come back. It just doesn't come back. And while putting a solar panel up may solve one problem, putting it on an agricultural land is going to cause another problem. And we lose that. And by the way, energy is one of our 16 critical infrastructures, but food and agriculture is also one of them. And solving a problem in one infrastructure, which creates a problem in another infrastructure, doesn't actually help us. Now, that's a bigger question than we just have to deal with here in Rockbridge County, or more people than us have to deal with it. But we have our little piece and part of that too. We don't grow our own food. Somebody else will. If you don't like foreign oil, how are you going to like foreign food? By the way, I stole that from somebody who stole it from somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tom Lackey, followed by Luke Grant.
You got the slide with the layout of the. with the
Yeah, if you
project.
want to start talking, I can pull that up for you. Yes, sir.
I just want to show everybody where I live, which is about 40 yards from the fence road. And in some of the other areas,
If you want to provide your address, that'd be sufficient.
28 Bag Pipeline.
Okay, we can make that.
Okay.
Anyway, a lot of people. Okay,
Well, it can't display. I'm having a hard time displaying. So if you want to go ahead and check, we can check.
you can bring it up. My trailer's right there.
Okay. Adjacent to the property.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And I've heard a lot of things about storms, water drainage. And Virginia Tech is just starting to do a study on vegetation and storm events. Another guy's doing a local water quality study. And these studies are just starting. So nobody's got the information yet. And didn't see the slide, but there's my trailer. 40, about 40 yards from the fence row. And across over here is Beulah land, retirement, assisted living. You start having storms come through there, it's going to do a lot of damage. And bring up his point, he was talking about the exit off 11 on the Steel Fort Road. Well, the truck drivers today are going to follow their GPS. They're going to get off at exit 205. They're going to come up by the truck stop. They're going to get on Steel Fort Road and drive to the job site. And that road doesn't even have a yellow line in the middle of it. It's about three miles probably through that way. Now, what are you going to do with the panels when they go bad? There's bound to be some that make it through tech, and then there's going to be some that's damaged in shipping. Then in 15 years from now, they're all going to start failing. And how long does it take for that tree to grow to where it makes a difference about the wind? There's a lot of questions nobody's answering because there's no information out there to give them anything to go by. Now, I think you better back up and take a second look at this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Luke Grant, followed by Richard Grant.
Man, I'm not used to talking in front of people, so bear with me, but I don't know anything about solar panels. There's something I do know about is being a young farmer in the Shenandoah Valley. We don't have that much land to spare to farm in this valley. I have strived to get what I have, and it's hard to just do it in general. If it's even just given to you, it's hard. Then it's very complicated. God, darn, I'm so choked up. I'm sorry, but it's not just my generation. It's the next generation. I got a nephew who was just born September 30th, sitting there holding him, thinking that's opportunity to be taken away from him. There's other solar farms going on in the county. The one in Fairfield, that's another 50 acres or so being took away. I don't know, but that's a farm that I always grew up thinking, man, it'd be cool to get to farm that one day. That's a dream. Dreams don't always come true, but somebody was going to farm it till solar panels came in here. it was going to be up to somebody to do it. But if we keep taking away our precious farmland, we need to preserve it. I mean, we don't have that much left to sacrifice. There may be a place for solar panels, but I don't think this is it. And I just got information about the topsoil in Fairfield. They already scraped everything off there, not putting the topsoil back on there. So all them flowers I was showing you, it's hard to get anything to grow without flowers. And we farm this farm. This one they're talking about put the solar panels on. I farmed it. It's kind of hard for me to feed my cows a solar panel, and I don't want to eat a solar panel. I need that hay. It's what I used to feed my cows. So it's affecting me. It's affecting everybody in the community. I can't just make that up overnight. You don't make more ground. This is all we got. Let's take care of it. Thank y'all.
Richard Grant, followed by Cynthia Cater.
Good evening. Well, you know, it's a lot to be said about just up right and left, but one way of looking at it is we gotta preserve this land. I mean, that's all it is to it. We've worked this land, we mowed hay on this land, and we're just gonna put corn on this ground. And let me ask you something, which would you rather see? Solar panels or corn stalks? Corn stalks is harvested. You can redo the ground, you put grass back in, whatever you want. These solar panels, they're gonna be there for what, 20, 25 years, whatever it is. Then what do you do with them? There you are. You're stuck with this. And like I said, down the road, down the road, down the road, keep kicking this can down the road. At the end of 20, 25 years, like I say, landfill, recycle, what do you do? I don't know. Does anybody really know? I mean, what do you do if it's a mess? But with corn stalks, you bush hog them up, you bale them up, feed them to cows, let them go back in the ground, plant grass over top of them, what do you want to do? It's recyclable. This stuff here, I don't know. Yeah, and there's a natural beauty to the county. You talk about natural beauty of this county? There's a natural beauty. There's people up on the ridge roads, looks over on that land every day. They don't want to see that crap. We don't need it. We don't want it. You know, it's just an eyesore. I mean, there's other ways of doing business. You know, energy is important. You know, there's plenty of gas, plenty of oil to be dug. And cars right now are getting down to about zero emissions. We need to rethink a lot of this stuff, I think. So, you know, that's all I got to say, but really think hard about it when you make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cynthia Cater, followed by Stephen Cater.
Hi, thank you for listening to us. I have a statistic to make an exclamation point on these points these people are talking about. The World Bank says that there's only 18% of US land that is arable to grow crops. That's the whole United States. And so whatever they're taking up and whatever the other ones and the other 6 that you're going to hear tonight, they're taking out of that 18%. So keep that in mind. Any money that's going to go on is going to go out of state because I believe the lady that owns this lives in Maryland. So it isn't even going to be anything we can use here. No taxes, nothing. It's not helpful on our tax base. The other thing I want to talk about is we reviewed the Volcano LLC's proposal and their reclamation costs. If you look at the bottom dollar figure of that, it's $218,000 to reclaim that. I mean, you were talking about replacing, not being able to replace all of the land, all of the topsoil that's been taken off. I mean, let's look at Alexander Farm. How much topsoil have they taken off? How can you replace topsoil for $218,000 on this much? I mean, replacing the topsoil alone is just going to be really expensive. So make sure that as a board, if you approve this for some crazy reason, you need to include higher costs for reclamation. I mean, look at what's going on in the Alexander Farm. How are we going to reclaim that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Cantor, followed by Hilton Harrison.
Hi, I'm Steve Cater. I live on Mackey's Lane in the South River District. I thank you for listening. I just want to concur with everything that's been said. so far, and my wife just stole a lot of my thunder. So let me skip to the point here. I and others have called or asked the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors to come up with regulations and rules to govern these permitting of these applications, these projects. And there was a citizen's letter published in the News Gazette on May 6th, 2021, 2.5 years ago. This was when the dynamic energy project in Fairfield was being considered. This very astute person said, "It is our responsibility now to put solar farm development rules, guidelines, and recommendations in place to preserve the quality of those solar farm lands and soils so that those lands may be put back into active and productive agriculture at the end of the lease term. Modern solar farms can be built using lightweight construction equipment without grading." Now, we've seen with the Fairfield project that they didn't do that. They used heavy equipment and they just stripped its topsoil. And it's because we had no rules in place to say, don't do that. So the News Gazette editorial a couple of weeks after that letter said, yes, we do need those. So the News Gazette is behind the idea of having solar farm ordinances. So where are those ordinances? I understand there was a working meeting before this one. I looked at, heard what some people said, looked at the minutes that were taken. We need those regulations now. And I would like us to just pause any more of these applications until we can get some rules that everyone can agree on in place. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Mr. Harrison? Yes, Mr. Harrison, followed by Alan Stewart.
Yes, my name is Hilton Harrison. I live on Great Road. And when the picture was shown, the nice trees and stuff around the property, when you step up my back door, them pine trees are going to be at my back door. When they was up there drilling, they'd come up with drills and testing the land and stuff. I went up and asked the guy, I said, "What y'all drilling up here for?" And he told me that's where they're going to be putting the fence line, 35 yards from my back door. My well is exactly 25 yards from my back door. So, and I've been looking at watching stuff and looking at studies, and it shows about EMF and dirty energy and talking about the water. There's been so many tests done that it does contaminate the water. And there has been tests done that shows that these solar panels put off a noise that can cause you to go deaf. That's been shown. I just think it's a bad idea. I mean, we got to save our land, and I'm planning on leaving my place when the good Lord takes me to my kids. So when I leave them to my kids, what are they going to see when they grow up and they have kids? All this mess behind the house. And as my understanding is too, is after they take these solar panels down, you cannot grow, put anything on that property for 10 to 20 years. You got to give it to 10 to 20 years, then you can start putting stuff back on there. So how are we going to do that? I oppose this.
Thank you.
Alan Stout, followed by Amy Moore.
Thank you for the chance to do words. I've listened to the people and I agree with them 100%, especially from the gentleman from North Carolina. I've been traveling to Shenandoah Valley the last 45 years. And I loved Shenandoah Valley so much that I moved here. And we live on the other side of Spencer's, between two beautiful farmlands. And one of the farmlands is being surveyed for a solar panel field. And the gentleman that I bought it from knows that I bought it because of the scenery. I paid good money, almost every penny we have to get this place. And we have a panoramic view. And they're talking about putting a solar field right on the hill that we look at to the south, which will destroy the aesthetic value. Not only that, it threatens our health because of electromagnetic radiation, which comes from the storage units that they store this power in. And how are they going to dispose of it? So there's health issues that are enormous. The aesthetic value is incredible to be ruined. In fact, the studies have said when you have a solar field and that's all your eye sees when you look out
it's drawn right to the solar field and not all the surroundings that God had given us to enjoy. And I tell you, the thing that really breaks my heart, when I drive to Stanton to go to Aldi to do some grocery shopping, and to drive down there and to look off the first time I looked off to the right, and I saw all these poles sticking up and the land stripped, and found out it was going to be a field there, broke my heart. I mean, it's amazing. And not only that, yesterday, the day before yesterday, we came back and I went down 11 and stopped and took pictures of it. And it is disgusting what it looks like. I don't care how many trees you plant, you're not going to, a tree won't stop the electromagnetic radiation that comes from this stuff. Okay. In fact, it's proven to shorten people's lives. And if you're hypersensitive to it, it actually can be fatal. You know, it's kind of like a 5G thing. And so when I hear people, they remind me kind of the government when Biden's talking about how they care about the agriculture. They don't care about the agriculture. They could care less about the agriculture or the people. You're here to make a buck. And I applaud the tax attorney here. I myself spent in public accounting with Price Waterhouse. I echo everything he said. We can't let this happen, and especially for these people. I mean, these people, I mean, it breaks my heart. I love hearing the stories. I look out and see them. This is America, and we need you to protect them, and hopefully one day protect my home site.
Thank you.
Amy Moore, followed by Calvert Fitzgerald.
Hi, I'm Amy Moore. I'm obviously from Rockbridge County. Brownsburg, 1793 is when we were established. Wade's Mill, Natural Bridge, VMI, Civil War, vineyards, old log cabins, timber frames. What is Rockbridge County about? We are about history. What is the history on a solar panel? 5 minutes. I'm going to piggyback often. I know I got 3 minutes and I like to talk, so we got a lot to say here. I'm piggybacking often Steve Hart, Mr. Tax Attorney, the Clarks, the Grants. I am a local business owner. Local business owners, you know what they do? They support local. You know who they're supporting? They're supporting our schools. They're supporting our Girl Scouts. These big companies, I'm part of the PTO. I go around doing fundraising. I'm part of my daughter's school fundraising committee. I show up at these big companies and I say, hey, would you be willing to support our school? We're having a bingo night. Guess what happens? Yes, I'd be happy to take your letter. We'll get back to you. Guess what? They never get back to us. You know who gets back to us? You want to know who buys Girl Scout cookies? The farmers. The farmers love to eat Girl Scout cookies when they're out doing these fields. My kids are always hitting up this crowd right here. This crowd right here are the ones that are supporting local. They are the ones standing up and doing what is right. That is my big question is great. When the lease is up, what happens? We're going to the next lease. Oh, that lease is up. We're going to the next lease. In 50 years, when the leases run up, what's going to happen to these solar panels? Is it going to be the eyesore of our county? If you have an old log cabin sitting there deteriorating, guess what? It's part of Rockbridge County. If you have a solar panel sitting there deteriorating, like they said, we're not going to eat a solar panel. Are they going to be using local sources? They're not buying their material from Spencer's, a local company that supports local. They're not using our local excavators that have children that are going to our schools. We have these businesses, all these local businesses all around need help. I'm hiring. My local business is hiring. I can't get anybody. We're going to bring more people in and say they're going to work, support the community. No, you're taking away employees from me. Sorry, I've got a lot of notes. Just think about it. Think about it carefully when I know it's been said and said again. We've got this solar panel coming in. Let's stop. Let's be patient. Let's see what happens to this solar panel farm that we already have coming in because we can't get farmland back. And, they were talking about the numbers and how small of a portion that we have for farming. The backbone of this company, the food that is feeding this world is from farmers. It's not from solar panels. Let's use rooftops for solar panels. Let's use roadsides or something like that down the middle of the median of the highways. Don't be going and taking our farmland
you.
Hello, I'm Calvert Fitzgerald. Everybody knows me as CS. I'm here on behalf of my family. And I agree with everything everybody said. My approach is a little bit different. We own the piece of land that joins this, that the roads will come along, the panels will be up against. One question I do have, and I want y'all to find this out for me. The easement on Moore's Trail is an easement. We own to the center of the road on our piece of property. When Bobby Bergstrasser wanted to put in an industrial park entrance into that piece of property that family owns, it couldn't be done without us signing off, selling land, doing something. And Bobby's been a lifelong friend, but he got a little upset with us. But we said, no, didn't want to do it. And it is a single track road up through there. I don't know what the easement is, but when they had the picture up, they were showing all these trees on all this property. And there was nothing along our property line. And that's the way the roads will come in part of the panels. That piece of property was an investment by my father and mother. My dad didn't really believe in saving money like most people. He believed in buying something that he thought he could sell one day to make some money off of. That place was listed for sale about 45 days ago. And the realtor said it was worth $12,400 an acre, rough math. Where they're wanting to put this would be an excellent place. If somebody wanted to farm at, build a house on top of that hill, would be looking at Beulah land, which is absolutely beautiful. If y'all run 11 very much. Beulah land does a great job mowing. I'm around the turn there at my farm. I keep it mowed. If I wanted to bitch, I could stand here and say from my front porch, I'm gonna see this thing. But I think that there's a lot of things that needs to be addressed that I don't see how this is gonna work. And like I said, I agree with everything they said, but I don't feel we need it and we're totally against it. But I just wanted to make those points that we need to really find out some information before we move forward anymore with that, because they don't really have the width for an industrial, and that's what it's got to be to go through there.
Thank you.
That's everyone that's physically signed up. Will recognize anyone in the audience who'd like to speak.
We will now take comments by computer. Oh, we do have somebody.
You could
Okay.
come up, state your name and magisterial district.
My name's Deanna Warner. I live in Rockbridge County, right across the highway from where they are going to put up all these solar panels. It will be an eyesore. Them little trees they're going to put up is not going to block our view. We have a almost, 360-degree view of the mountains. And then there's going to be this huge solar panel farm right there. I agree with everything everybody is saying, of course, about the land and ruining the land, but also the view. And I just, if I have any time left, I'd like to give it to Mr. Clark so he can come back up here and speak, or the attorney to come back up here and speak. But I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll now take comments via computer and phone. Little coercion is fine.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. Okay. Hi, Izzy.
Hello. She's shyer than her brother that, yeah, my brother.
Clearly did not get that from mother.
I'm not her mother.
No, from Fred. Okay.
My brother spoke and my dad spoke. We have formed this land for a few years now. As Amy was saying, that she made a lot of good points. One thing that she informed me about, that we are in a populated area. She does drive the school bus and I meet her every morning on my way to work. And she picks up 40 to 60 kids and I sit there for about 5 to 10 minutes waiting for her to pick them up. Not including the truck stop, which I know those aren't locals, but
It's less than a mile away.
yes, it connects to the land.
That's it. That's very important. I think that it was brought up, the point was brought up, that it wasn't a populated area. And there's 40 to
There-
60
yeah.
kids getting on one bus stop.
With including all the new businesses and stuff, but then
Got it.
with the
Yes.
dentist's office and Dr. Marshall's office. It is a local, it is populated and it's local, it's all local. So it's very important that we preserve it.
Thank you.
If you want to do something, Izzy would like a bus stop.
One more, Chris.
Have one more,
All right.
Chris.
Yes. No, sir.
Yep. Sorry.
One shot at it. Thank you. though. While I look online, I would like to recognize we received 3 letters today, and I forwarded all of those to the members of the Planning Commission. One was from Miss Betty Moore Ferguson. The second one was from Mr. Robert Moore. And then the third one was from Tom Stanley, Extension Agent. So I'd like to, we no longer practice reading those letters, but we do acknowledge receiving them.
Okay.
With that, I'd like to turn the focus online. If there's anyone online that would like to make a comment, please utilize your raise hand button now. Not seeing any, I will turn the floor back. Oh, we do. 1 second. Miss Elmer, you have raised your hand and you are currently muted, but let's see if we can hear you.
She just turned it off.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak and all, but I just want to make the point that I don't think, whether you're a farmer or you're not, many people wouldn't like it if someone else came in and said, this is what you can do and this is what you can't do on your own property. You take that how you would like to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak? Please use the raise the hand button. I'll jot down this last name here. Bear with me. All right, last call for anyone online. Not seeing any, I will turn the floor, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Okay, with no further comments, we are going to close the public.
If you could state your name and magisterial district.
My name is Kathleen Stout, and I live here, and I live in one of the affected areas. And I just wanted to say that I can conclude and concur with everything everyone has said here about all of this. And I believe that it's really going to be a health issue. And liabilities will come back to, obviously, the county, Lexington, Rockbridge, and there's a lot to think about. So I just want to put my 2 cents in. I'm all in favor, for all the farmers and myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're ready now to close the public hearing. And we will bring it back to the board. Lots to think about, talk about. You guys have questions?
If I may interrupt, are we closed or continued the public hearing?
We closed it as far as I'm concerned. Yep.
If we're gonna have a lengthy discussion, I'd like to take a break.
Okay. What, is that okay, Chris, if we take a little break?
I would say get through this one agenda item and then
Oh,
maybe
okay.
take a break.
That's
Okay.
fine.
I think that would be appropriate.
Very good. Okay. So Robert, do you want to weigh in or questions?
Well, we had a work session at 4 o'clock today, working on some items that we want to put into an ordinance. And a lot of what these folks are presenting is in their site plan, really fly against what we were looking at in an ordinance. Y'all talking about 75-foot and 50-foot setbacks, which are in some areas in the county. It's what we do, but we're looking at 300 foot what we brought up as far as setback to property lines. No stormwater management ponds. The proposal that you brought to us with 35-foot poles and no stormwater management ponds and it looked like a kind of a generic proposal that just got thrown at us instead of maybe looking at what we've done with some of the other solar fields. With what I'm hearing from everybody here tonight, I think it's really going to affect quality of life and of a lot of people here. And it's going to affect land values. And that's two of the things that we've got to look at as planning commission members as far as what it's going to do. If these folks, all these folks that come in after you put a solar field up and bought the properties, they couldn't say anything. But they've got a right now to definitely say something about view shed and about what's going on and what they're looking at. So they didn't buy into that. And I feel like it's our job to protect them and protect their investments in property and their quality of life. So I mean, I'm ready to make a motion. I don't hear what everybody else got to say.
Okay.
Well,
Do you have something to say yet? Okay,
much
we'll go this way.
okay. Well, I'm the newest resident of Rockbridge County. I moved here from a very rural county on the eastern shore of Maryland. And just a little anecdote, we were inundated by something very similar. And the thing that I found out after living for 22 years in New Jersey is that once a farm is gone, it's gone. And I think that we had a very good work session. Several people pointed out that we really need to put together ordinances. I agree with Robert, and I agree with quite a few of the people in the audience.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'll say I'm not ready for necessarily a motion to approve or deny at this point, based on some of our conversations earlier. I think sometimes we get drug into the feeling like it's a popularity contest, and obviously we know who'd lose this one with the turnout today. But our job is to make sure that the proposal meets the comprehensive plan, follows all applicable regulations, and I think there is something to balancing the property owners' rights as well. I mean, I know it certainly would affect everyone, but I think it merits a little more discussion, maybe some additional conditions. Their offer to meet with all these folks after this meeting. So for that reason, I'm ready to table it till next month at a minimum.
I don't believe so.
Statutory mandate is to protect. This is in the statute. This economy.
I think that was the point of order. I said no to. So
Right. I got you.
I think so. Yes, sir. You're correct.
Okay. So, you know, I have some questions. Obviously, I was the only person who voted against the solar farm. I don't even like to call it solar field that got, you know, put up at the Alexander farm for many of these very points. I have grave concerns about what we're doing to our community, the fact that we have very little farmland left. I don't think this is the place for it. I think there are places. I voted to put them in some places out in Rockbridge Baths. You know, I voted to put it, you know, for the Cars Creek when we had it out at Highland Bell. You know, so I do think there are some places, but, you know, when I hear that it's in compliance with our comprehensive plan, I don't see how this is creating any jobs for us. I don't see where it's creating a tax benefit for us. I don't see it's increasing anybody's personal income in Rockbridge County. These are out of town people that we don't know who they are. In 30 years, when we go to decommission, the same thing I had a concern with. Whenever you decommission, are we going to be filling up our landfill? Are our kids going to have to deal with it? I have grave concerns. And that's, I mean, I've said it out there and I'm been very public about it. It's very emotional for me as well to hear these young farmers saying, what are my kids going to do when there's no farmland left? What are we going to eat? My son said to me today, he said, you know, Mom, people should be able to do on their land what they want to. And I said, really? I said, what are you going to eat when there's no farmland left? You know, we buy our stuff from Donald's and from local people. We need to support our local people. And we need to take care of our community. I mean, one of our biggest things, I was talking to a supervisor today, and she said, you know, one of our biggest draws is our tourism here for our land. You know, if we put up a bunch of solar farms and we don't have these ordinances in place, we need to have we need to have an ordinance that states this is what we're looking for. So
and I could address that point.
Yeah.
at
So I would like to, you know, to me, I think that's the next step for me. I mean, obviously I have my own concerns about this. So, you know, if you want to table it, I think these people should have been talked to before coming here tonight. You know, I understand that didn't really happen. But it's not what I've heard, but Chris, do you have?
I would like to speak on the ordinance questions, some VDOT questions, but I do think it's appropriate for the applicant to be able to speak as usual.
Okay.
Well, I got one more thing. We're talking about decommissioning. In y'all's proposal, if the operator doesn't decommission that site, it falls back on the landowner. Didn't know if anybody had read that or saw that, but it does. So in y'all's proposal, it falls back to the landowner to tear it out. And if that's the case, it's like I see this turn into a nightmare for the county. That's where I'm at.
I agree.
So
I agree. I think the decommissioning numbers make no sense. And as a person who owns a construction company, it didn't make sense when I looked at them at the Alexander Farm. It doesn't make sense when I'm looking for them here.
So our job, like right now, I mean, I agree, the ordinance and everything, but if we had to vote, I'd vote to deny.
Right.
I believe it is appropriate, like we have done in the past, to allow the applicant to respond to some of the questions and concerns that have been raised, and then we'll have due process. Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
Great. Okay. So which of you guys want to come up and address some of these concerns? I've kind of been making notes, so hopefully you've been too.
Yes, absolutely. Again, my name is Alexandria Walling. I will say, it's great to see all of the community engagement. I would also like to, is this a little bit better?
Yes,
Okay.
much. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm short and I misjudge sometimes the height. So I would like to first off commend everybody for being involved. And I would also like to commend your planning department. There is a lot of discussion about the lack of ordinance. We absolutely understand that. And we commend you guys for discussing that. What I will say is that your planning department definitely did diligence and worked with us. And a lot of the standards and things that we discussed, although they are not in an ordinance, are very similar to ordinances that we see in other counties in Virginia. So I just wanted to say that there was a lot of work and consideration and feedback. Additionally, we do encourage feedback from the community. We want to be good neighbors. We sent out letters and we are going to make ourselves available. We do have an email address specifically for this project that can be addressed by our experts, our developers, our end owners. That is volcano.energy@innovatus.com. You can also see that on our slides. So we do want to be as transparent as possible. Having said that, there is some question about the ownership. That's why we wanted to bring representation of who's developing the project, who's constructing it, and who owns it. Safari Energy was brought up. Safari Energy was bought and rebranded as Aspen Power. So Safari is Aspen. Safari and Aspen now and Innovatus work together. So the ownership, those are the owners from start to end, from origination, development, construction, ownership, and long-term ownership, operating and maintenance. The team that you have here can be referred to. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question, just because he brought up about long-term. So you say long-term, I mean, is that 30 years? Is it 50? You don't know. I mean, you can't.
The lifespan
Really?
of the project is for a minimum of 25 years, but our plans are to have it for 40 years.
Right. But is the same LLC going to own it for 40 years?
Yes, and that is why there is a separate LLC for the project, so that everything connected to that project is housed within that LLC.
But there's no way that if you decided to sell it to another LLC or rebrand it again or get bought out by something, we don't have any control over that, once that happens.
We do have some separate legal documentations that we are not allowed to assign or rebrand it without certain notices. And I do understand that has been a problem in the state of Virginia, and there have been new rigorous standards by the SEC and the utility to ensure that ownership trail is absolutely followed. So we are committed to abiding by that.
One other question, and then I just was thinking that this didn't really get brought up, but this power that you're going to be creating is not going to be used by our local residents.
This is connecting to the existing Dominion Energy grid. As your comprehensive plan says, Dominion is the #1 electricity provider in the county. Now, as far as where the exact protons go within the grid, it's an interconnected grid across the state and, even the US. But we are addressing the capacity on that existing line and the load needs that they see on that line. The investment that we're putting into it from our private company is an investment that the utility will not have to pay themselves in the future.
Okay. And how many, you mentioned on here, this is going to create jobs. So where are these jobs?
Well, first off, I would like to say that some of the existing team members here are also residents of Virginia. In fact, the
Rockbridge County, though, specifically.
Okay, fair. But, we are incentivized, not just financially, but also as a good neighbor to provide as much training and jobs for the build of our project and for the long-term maintenance of the project.
So local people would be employed for the long-term maintenance and
That is
to
100% our goal, and we will try to maximize that as much as possible, knowing that some of this labor is skilled labor, and some of the education and stuff is still catching up, but that is our #1 objective. Yes.
And the build time is 2 to 3 months. So we're basically talking about employing local people for 2 to 3 months. Is that?
For the build, yes. There are other jobs that are definitely generated by the project, not just, like our firms, development, operating and maintenance, finance jobs. And again, we didn't talk a lot about the tax. We are committed to signing an agreement with the county to provide additional tax revenue for this project, in addition to the raised property values.
Raised
rollback
property
tax-
values.
And rollback taxes.
Raised property values?
If it is going to be restructured, yes.
Okay, gotcha. For the property
yeah, for the
itself,
prem-
because
for
they
the
pay the
premises,
rollback,
yeah.
you pay the rollback
Yeah,
taxes.
we pay
when
rollback
it- take
taxes
it
and
out
we'll
of
pay taxes
agricultural
on the
use.
premises itself.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha.
And I just wanted to make one other clarification because I know there was some concern. The parcel itself is approximately 153 acres. Our premises we've said 75 acres. The fenced-in area is really only about 40 to 45. But when we consider the premises, we are talking about not just the fenced-in area. We're talking about the buffer area, the landscapes, the easement, any conservation easements that we're going to utilize to preserve the existing vegetation.
And for reference, for those of you, I think that don't know, 40 acres is what is on the Alexander Farm, which we approved for the Alexander Farm, just to give you an idea of the size of that.
And I
what that looks
wouldn't
like.
be able to comment on that project.
Right.
We had nothing to do with that.
Sure.
And
Gotcha. Okay.
not affiliated in any way.
Okay. Just have any questions for her while she's up here? Oh, you have
Sorry,
more.
one last thing,
Oh, sure.
or maybe a
Okay.
couple other things.
Sure.
I will say there is not going to be any storage on this particular site. There was a mention of storage unit and concerns there. We will not have storage batteries connected to this site. I know there was a lot of discussion on topsoil. As we said, we are trying to utilize every practice to reduce any grading. And one thing that we can add to it is, as we said, we're the developer and the construction, and you guys also know the owner and the operating and maintenance. Sometimes we've seen there have been little lapses in communication throughout those transitions. What we're working with in development is getting feedback from the construction team who have experience, and that we'll have to have the knowledge of that throughout the process.
Thank you. You guys have anything else? Questions for her? Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sorry. Chris, so now are we ready to bring it back and we can discuss further?
Sure. I
Decide.
think it would be beneficial to review how it is being treated in the agricultural zoning district as a public utility. That would be the same as a special exception in the AT zoning district and the A2 zoning district, agricultural and general use and agricultural transitional. As far as, and I've shared these obviously with the planning commission as always, and with the applicant as always, the draft conditions that could be utilized. As y'all know, planning, the zoning department plays a very neutral role in this. Our recommendation per the agenda item was, if there's consensus of the planning commission, make a recommendation to the board. That's important for the public to know. This would be a recommendation to the board of supervisors, who is the governing body. But just to briefly review the draft conditions, number one would state development of the property for which the application is being made is substantially in accordance with the development plan titled Volcano Energy, prepared by Volcano Energy LLC, preliminary site plan prepared by Kimberly Horn and Associates with the date of September 15th, 2023. With that being said, it does show, I think the comment was made that does not show stormwater management, that shows 7 stormwater management detention ponds. It shows landscaping between the Fitzgerald property and this property, and landscaping of parallel to Route 11, and then also along Great Road is shown. Number 2, draft condition is the maximum height for tilt of the solar array shall not exceed 15 feet. Number 3, acceptance of a decommissioning agreement incorporating decommissioning plan dated August 23, subject to Virginia licensed engineer certification and decommissioning costs as outlined in the Code of Virginia 15.2-2241-2. That does require a licensed engineer to make that decommissioning cost. As far as number 4, I won't read the whole thing, but in summary, panel specification and composition. At the time of site plan review, the applicant shall provide the director with written panel specification disclosure document that includes composition of all solar panels being utilized for the facility. It also goes on to prohibit other certain types of panel. The facility use shall be panels only that employ anti-glare technology, anti-reflective, and other available mitigation techniques, and meet or exceed industry standards to reduce glare and glint and glare, excuse me. Number 6, compliance with 2 section of light regulations. As we talked in the work session, the very little lighting is associated with these projects. Our outdoor lighting ordinance is restrictive. It's not completely dark sky as far as compliance, but it is restrictive in my opinion, but it does not pertain to properties in the agricultural zone. So we felt it'd be beneficial to say compliance with section 1303, the general lighting requirements, and section 1303-4, general design requirements of the lighting ordinance of Rockbridge County. All construction and decommissioning activities, excuse me, number 7, all construction and decommissioning activities shall be limited to the hours of blank and blank, Monday through Saturday, and will be prohibited on Sundays. Again, these are all just draft recommendations. And then we have an implementation of the project date, implementation of the project by blank date and project completed by blank date. Finally, approval contingent on Virginia Department of Transportation, erosion and sediment control, stormwater management approvals, and all applicable state and federal regulations. This does, is my understanding, that this site does require some sort of low volume commercial entrance or moderate volume commercial entrance. I do understand that they've talked with the local representative at VDOT. And so I just wanted to make sure that the general public knew, and of course everyone knew, that while we do treat these as a special exception as a public utility, I would say that most, a lot of the concerns and comments that are associated with the ordinance certainly have been and continue to be covered by conditions associated with permit that could be associated with permit.
Okay.
It's staff's recommendation. Staff's recommendation is a very neutral role of approach, and it's the recommendation of staff. If there's consensus of the planning commission to make a recommendation to the board of supervisors, receive public comment. To answer your question directly, I work for the county of Rockbridge, and it is our responsibility to draft certain conditions to help alleviate or attempt to alleviate some concerns that are expressed. And that was the purpose of me going through this list of 1 through 9 to express.
And I'm going to remind you guys, we have closed the public hearing. And so Chris works really hard for us and for Rockbridge County. And I would, those conditions are to help us to give us some ideas of things that we might present if we choose to move forward with this. So we will, excuse me. No, I'm sorry.
I would certainly encourage you to write the planning commissions, write the county attorney, write the county administrator. Yes, sir.
Motion.
I think we should make a motion here and get this. We need to move on with this. My feeling is we have gotten the information that we need. I feel like we are ready to make a motion. The board is ready to make a motion. So,
Yep.
sorry, the commission.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion, to recommend the board of supervisors that the special exception permit to develop 5 megawatt AC solar project in the agriculture and general uses district A-2 and the agriculture transition A-T zoning districts per LDR section 603.03-9 and 603B.03-14, public utilities be denied.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have one opposed, and so the motion passes.
And for everyone in the public to realize that this is a recommendation that will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors tentative date will be November, and this is a tentative date. I could provide my number to confirm. The tentative date would be November 27th, 2023. We usually hold public hearings. Public hearing will be held at or after 7. With that being said, if y'all are, I'm sorry, 26, November at 6 o'clock. Yes, I apologize. With that being said, the notice of public hearing will be advertised in the newspaper as it was previously, and also all adjoining landowners will get certified mail as they did with this public hearing. We appreciate everyone's time and being here.
We are going to take a brief recess, if that's okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No. My reasons.
Yeah.
Got through it. Got through it. I said we got through it.
Oh, yeah, we need to get the fires and stuff that we need to do. I told, Chris, that's exactly right. I mean, don't go down this path. We started today at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it's gonna have, but it's gonna have to be some does, and as far as I'm concerned, this, until we get some orders. These things kick down the road. If that means we come back in 6 months, they come back 6 months down the road, a year down the road, if that's what they want to do. But then there's still got to, if there's opposition, I don't care what anybody says, I'm looking at property values and quality of life. That's one of the 2 things that I remember in the books when I got my training. I remember that. And that's one of the things that I look at.
More study on this one in particular as to how this is. It's not.
Yeah, well, they can be pretty good.
Yeah, I was surprised that that one.
So I would encourage you to, I can also provide my number.
Yeah, I should
You look back.
First name. So, you know,
No.
So if you oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, and that's the purpose of the zoning action pending sign on the property, which is but then also the newspaper. It's all just for this. I know this public here, but we appreciate the comments.
Yes, I do. I knew I saw your brother yesterday. It's been a long time. Yeah, Robert. Yeah, well, yeah, your oldest brother.
That's gonna be
The oldest of the 2 brothers. Yeah.
That's why I call him.
Yeah,
Brother, the little
yeah,
brother.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I call
Yeah,
him?
doing good, doing good. Yeah. And, I was the, I guess, the black sheep of the way the vote went, but, you know, I think it merits a little more going forward. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I told somebody, I've been by it a couple times and I think we were, yeah, I wouldn't say we were duped, but I had no idea that that level of earth movement would need to take
When
place.
that vote happened, I mean, I went home and cried. I almost quit the planning commission because I was so upset.
Yeah. The way they sell them, they're just so, we're just gonna plant them and that follows the contour. So yeah, that one was a surprise. Right. You have to come back.
Same thing.
I'd say 8 out of 10 times.
And it depends on what happens between now and then too, how the
Yeah.
proposal changes.
They could pull the proposal, just sensing that it'll never get approved. And my main opposition to saying no right now is, and I understand that the property owner is somewhat equal. It's all family related and out of town. But yeah, I'm sure it's cost. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it has. But I mean, there is something to property rights. Like
Got to get
as
that
long
one
as I'm
done.
not really messing with all of other people, I should be able to do what I want to do with my property. Yeah. Yeah. But you also.
I think about 18% of our
Yes,
country
yes,
is
yeah,
farmland.
yeah.
We're buying a good
Yes,
way.
yes.
It is raping
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
I think we're
No, I
doing
know.
this,
Well,
right?
we've got another one if you want to be entertained for it right after this. Yeah, hopefully it won't be as long.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Good to see you, Shelley. Okay.
I was rural, but I ain't stupid.
Right, exactly. No, that's right. I mean, I just said, I'm sick of people coming in and thinking they can rape our land and take away our livelihood and these people's livelihoods.
Yeah, the thing that really bothers me the most, they talk about being green and everything.
Looking for, I cannot find the page that has the details on this. Are we ready to reconvene?
3 minutes, two or 3 minutes, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I want to get going. Yep.
We got a long night
A
ahead. of
long
us.
day. It's already been a long day.
Can I quote you on that?
You know me, I talk fast.
All right, let me make a run for the bathroom.
Cannot find the one. Oh, maybe this is it. No. She's over there. Glad Haven. No, that's volcano energy. Trying to, I cannot find this part for the second one that we're doing. Maybe this is it right here.
What's that? Which one?
Tell, where is this talking about how much?
No, yeah, no. Neil has. So that's okay.
Same thing. But how many acres? I cannot find the details on this one. Gilmore's Mill. You know what? I thought he brought up a good point. I thought he brought up a good point. If that Moore's Trail is an easement and he owns half and they own half, how can they do it without him? I don't think they can. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, a lot of good points. Hey.
Hey, how are you? I sold you your house, right?
Yes.
I thought you might not recognize me.
I know.
70 pounds lighter has had a little something to do with it. So, yeah. My husband just passed away 8 weeks ago, so I've been dealing with that for a while. So yeah. No, it's fine. I wondered when he came up there. Yeah. Yeah, I do want to come see it. Like, yeah, I knew you were talented, so. Right. No, I have a real problem with it. I'm tired of people. I was gonna say, I was in Las Vegas and I passed a big old solar farm. It's fine out there. Totally fine.
It was all
Right.
computer generated.
Yeah, we need to look at it for sure.
That's
So,
important.
all right, yeah, thank you. Take care. Good to see you. Take care. Okay, we're gonna bring the meeting back to order here. I'm gonna bring it. Can I bang the gavel? Okay, we're going to bring the meeting back to order. We are on to agenda item number 6, which is USS Hilltop Solar LLC, care of Environmental Resources Management. We have an application for a special exception permit to develop a 3 megawatt AC solar project at 331 Lloyd Tolley Road, Natural Bridge Station, Virginia 24579. We have a staff presentation.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going, bear with me here. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to get it ready going on the GIS.
Oh, do you want to, should we jump to buyers? We had said we were gonna.
No, ma'am.
Okay,
They're on call. And I think we reached out to them. We have an applicant that's joining us via Zoom. I believe Neil reached out to him and said it's going to be a little bit.
okay,
Yeah, they're prepared when.
whenever we're ready.
I just pulled the schedule.
Okay.
I knew these were gonna be long, so.
All right.
All right, my apologies on the delay. USS Hilltop Solar LLC, care of Environmental Resources Incorporated, has made an application for a special exception permit to develop a 3 megawatt AC solar project. The property is identified as 331 Lloyd Tolley Road, Natural Bridge, Virginia 24579, and is located on the west side intersection of Lloyd Tolley Road, further identified as 773, and Gilmore's Mill Road 708. The property is owned by Douglas E. and Joan E. Brawford, trustees, with the same address. The property is further identified as tax map number 113-5-D. A portion of the property is in the agricultural and general use districts, and a portion of the property is in the agricultural transitional zoning district. Per section 603.03-9 of the regulations, public utilities are used by special exception in the A2 district. Per section 603.14 of the regulations, public utilities are used by special exception in the AT zoning district. The proposed 3 megawatt solar site is located on approximately 21 acres of the Brawford tract, again, further identified as 113-5-D. Total site project, or excuse me, total tract of this tax map number is 141.61 acres, total acres per tax records. I apologize, I have an error in the staff report, but the Brawford property is currently used for hay production and cattle grazing. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Miss Rachel Tippett with you representing USS Hilltop Solar LLC. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pull up the site plan associated with the project. And of course, we have the entire site plan, but this focuses on the development area itself. Thank you. And I apologize, Dan Casper. Thank you.
Good evening, board. I think I will be a little bit more brief given the relative nature and time this evening. My name is Dan Sapler. I'm here with Rachel Tippett. I'm here representing US Solar. We are a solar developer, constructor, owner, and maintainer of small scale solar facilities like the one you see up here on the board. So to give you a little background on who we are a 40-person company. We're based out of Minnesota. We have offices in Arlington, Virginia, Boston, and kind of along the eastern seaboard. We, again, specialize in these smaller, what are called community scale solar arrays. We built roughly, I think we're at 85 to 90 to date. And they're sited throughout the United States. So we reached out to Mr. Bradford a few years back because this parcel we thought was a desirable location for the solar siting. He reciprocated interest in entering into a lease agreement with us at the time. And we, thought it was relatively clear and close to three-phase. So we reached out to him and began the development process of this solar facility you see in front of us. We have, two major hurdles to get through the development process, one being the interconnection process. So we did get the green light from Dominion. We have both a power purchase agreement in place with them. We had to go through an extensive RFP process with them. Took about, I'd say 7 months for them to review our RFP, which included many environmental due diligence factors and reports that we presented to them, and we have enacted into a PPA with them. We also received an interconnection agreement with Dominion, so they gave us the green light from an infrastructure standpoint, in order to connect. I think that, or I guess I'll just get into the high level overview of the project, and then Rachel can kind of give a more granular analysis of what we're proposing here. So the array itself is going to be a 3 megawatt solar facility. It'll encompass 20 acres, roughly 20 acres of land on a 163 acre parcel. So again, we're not going to take up too much of the existing property. The arrays themselves will be single access tracker. So what essentially that is, and I'm sure the board is familiar with that type of array, but they move throughout the day and face the east in the morning and the west at night in order to maximize solar efficiency. We like to be as minimally invasive as possible. So these arrays will be pile driven into the ground. And we also utilize a farm style cattle fencing with wooden posts, which we think meshes better with the surrounding community. There'll be a gravel access road running out from Gilmore's Mills Road, and then running through the array out to the point of interconnection to the north where the utility has existing infrastructure. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. After the construction phase, which takes roughly 6 months, the majority of the construction phase will probably take about, I'd say 2 weeks, which is when we pile drive the panels into the ground. And then we'll get the utility out there, and they, as you guys are probably well aware, Dominion, no offense to anyone who works for Dominion in the building, but they move at a snail's pace. So that's kind of why it takes 6 months. And then the array just, sits there and creates electricity. We have a 20-year PPA in place with Dominion. So the initial term will be 20 years, but if they wish to extend past that, we will oblige. And I think that's it. I guess I'll hand it over to Rachel. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Chris. So Rachel Tippett, ERM, Environmental Resources Management. I'm the land use planner on this project. Chris and Dan have both pretty much talked about the project, but just want to give an overview of the site plan. I believe you'll all have that. And do you guys have copies of the KOPs, the visual sims that we submitted as well? I think I do. Okay, so I'm just going to go through kind of site design, what we're looking through with the conceptual plan. So to reiterate, this overall parcel is 141 acres. Total LOD of the project is just over 20 acres. So that includes panel layout, site access, everything where the fencing is, everything. So not just panels, 20 acres within 141. Where the development will locate on the parcel is already cleared. There is dense evergreen vegetation to the south of the parcel. We're not touching that at all. We're not doing tree clearing. All development will locate where land is already cleared on the property. Site access, as you can see, will locate off of Gilmore's Mill Road. So we are proposing landscaping for a few hundred feet on either side of that access. So currently there is not that dense of vegetation around there. So to buffer and provide more screening, we're proposing 50 feet of landscaping in kind of those hashed areas on either side of the driveway. So what's embedded within that landscape buffer, we have 10 feet of white pine and American holly that can grow up to 150 feet, and then 30 for the holly. And then 40 feet, the staggered rows of green giant sweet bay magnolias that can grow upwards of 60 feet, 35 feet. And then in the very back closest to the panels, we're proposing rhododendrons and hollies. So 50 feet of screening proposed new. Those KOPs that we have provided show you what the site will look at the time of planting and then at 15 years. I believe KOP 3 kind of has like a simulation of like panel placement behind the vegetation. That's just to show you that panels are there. We're not just showing you trees. So if there's any confusion about that. So moving on to also hit on the access off Gilmore's Mill, we have been in contact and are working with Alvin Trout with the local district at VDOT. He has told us that we'll need a low volume commercial entrance. So we are working through that process. We are also looking into doing a speed study because of the topography. It's the site access, site distances are not that great. So we're doing a speed study to ensure safety when trucks are accessing the site and working through that with them. Stormwater management, again, our engineers are working through that. We plan on filing for a land development permit following approval and going through all proper channels with the locality and with DEQ following that. Initial analysis on the site determined that we need roughly 2.5 nutrient credits. We contacted the local bank, which was the Natural Bridge Nutrient Credit Bank in July. They did have availability. Those letters are only good for like a month or so, but they're pretty good about telling us if they're running low or not. So there is availability currently to meet our nutrient credit need on the site. Other items. So if you can see in the center of our panels, originally our site design did not factor this in. We worked with staff, so there is a karst feature on site. Panels and all development will avoid that feature. There is no specific ordinance requirement for buffering around that. So what we are proposing is doing 50 feet out from the tree line of that karst feature. So no access road, no panels, nothing development wise will impact the sensitive karst features on site. And then other environmental features, we did conduct a wetland delineation in February of this year. A perennial stream and a tributary were identified to the north of the parcel. We are avoiding those impacts and also staying out of, because you can see where the James River is located pretty close to us. We are out of that 100-year floodplain as well. There is a breakdown in the narrative of compliance with the comprehensive plan. Mostly hitting on those land use goals that we've talked about, the avoidance of karst features and retention of environmentally sensitive features that are in keeping with the land use section goals of the comp plan. I can answer any additional questions about the site plan. Dana's available for any more specific solar related infrastructure questions, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
At this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here physically present to speak?
First signed up is Mr. Donald Jeffer.
Hello, my name is Don Jeffer from Rockbridge District. Appreciate y'all's time. The first thing I'd like to say is I urge you all to come up with some regulations for the county to come up with some ordinances. If you had those in place based on some of the things you talked at during your 4 o'clock meeting, this site would not be eligible. And I'd be happy to talk to you about that. The second thing, I live directly across from this. This field where the panels will go has a 100-foot elevation change. And I wonder, and maybe you all can address this after the meeting, does the site have to be made flat like it does at Alexander's Orchard? Right now, my house sits between the panels and the sun. So even though I know they use some anti-reflective technology, any smooth piece of glass is going to reflect. If that lights up my house in the evening, I would surely have some concerns about it. And my last concern is what it's going to do for property values. My property is in a conservation easement. And I know that only affects my property, not a neighbor's property, but it certainly will reduce the value of my home and my property. So I would like you all to consider this, and again, urge you to come up with an ordinance before you address any more of these solar gardens, as they call them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Bill Russell, followed by Lee Merrill.
Thanks for your patience and thanks for your service, all of you. I'll say right off the bat, I think that this application in terms of ownership structure is much more transparent. I think that you're representing a partnership, and you might ask that Hill Holdings and the other entity he was just mentioning, I have it on here, are acting as partners. But that makes it, I think, easier for you to look at certain things. But having said that, I think that the things that were raised in the first public hearing are totally relevant here, particularly the public policy issues surrounding the land use issues and particularly the comprehensive plan. I think it does put an importance on examining the effect of these projects on soil. What we're seeing and we're hearing from multiple projects now is a degradation of the soil and the viability of farms in Rockbridge County. And I am a small farmer. And I worry. I heard that young man back who spoke up here, and I thought quite eloquently, and I heard what he said, and he reflects what I hear from a lot of younger people. You know, and I won't be around when you have to decommission this. 25 years from now, I'll be 101. But I think that the younger people here and the grandchildren and others involved in this are going to face a very difficult problem in decommissioning these sites. We know from studies and from EPA that a lot of these panels contain toxic substances, particularly lead and cadmium. How the decommissioning plans are addressing those, I don't know, but I think they're supposed to have more emphasis on compliance with RCRA than what is in the writings for the submissions. I would ask you, in terms of treating people equally and for the same reasons, to recommend the denial of this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Lee Merrill. I'm not sure he's still here. And then I apologize, but I can't read the handwriting of the next one. But it's Buffalo 757 number. Area code 757-784-8494. Going once. Going twice. Next up is Tracy Hip.
Okay. This is my very first meeting like this.
Just if you'll give your name and magisterial district, and then away you go.
Sure. My name's Tracy Hip. I live in Natural Bridge Station. My property is actually on this map. It directly abuts where the solar farm is planned to be.
Stop sharing screen.
And so not really knowing how this works, please forgive me if I ask anything that this isn't appropriate for. I came to hopefully just get more information because I got a letter in the mail, and I represent, I think, a different type of party than you've heard from this evening. I've only lived in the area for almost 2 years. My family and I looked at property from Blue Ridge, Georgia on up to Goshen, trying to find our forever home. And we found it on this little parcel of land right across the street from Mr. Ned's property, and fell in love, mainly because the view. The back of the house faces the mountains, the front of the house faces this pasture that's been in the family for like 250 years. So when we fell in love, our realtor did some research, and it seemed like this area and its natural beauty would be preserved, like for our family, for our kids, etc.
And so now, got the letter in the mail. It sounds like there might be some development. And from the visuals, it looks like the solar farm might be built, like our front door is actually made of glass. So when we look out our front door, the 20 acres of solar panels. So questions were things like, how might property values be preserved, or how might our property value be impacted, given that the view is number one thing? How, like with the line of sight stuff, since the peace and tranquility is what really brought us here, and we actually have been, or being part of our property to help with some income. The peace and tranquility is what it's all about. So how does the line of sight stuff help preserve that view? From the mock-ups, it looks like it's from street level, but the property slopes dramatically and our land is kind of up higher. So we just see, acres and acres. So is it possible to build on the other side of the ridge line where, some of the neighbors wouldn't be impacted? And also like how do we just get more information or talk to people? Like if it was possible to see a mock-up of what it might look like out of our front door once it's there, like, is that possible? Kind of thing. So I guess I come with more questions than anything, but just wanted to say, we love our new home, we love our community, and we love Mr. Ned because the property owner, and we want him to be taken care of. That's really important. Like, not trying to impact his retirement or anything like that. Just want to understand and see if there's a way that everybody can be taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all signed up, but we have a few other ones. Y'all can take turns. Mr. Hart, if you'd like to come up. Mr. Smith is next.
Steve Hart, Cars Creek, and this previous comments, and this is actually really hard for me because there's a huge balancing act here. And Bill's my friend. Hope he's still my friend later. And it's not just us that's trying to face this. There's two senators out of the Midwest, one Republican, one Democrat, looking at this on farmland in the Midwest saying, hey, wait a minute, all of our solar development is going on prime farmland. If you look in Maine, every solar field in Maine that's been developed, prime farmland. New York, same problem. Virginia hasn't actually looked at the problem yet. But the characteristics of prime farmland are also the characteristics of prime solar field land. And we've got a government incentive that's driving one of those and not the other one of those. And we don't know what to do with this. Now, I'm a big believer I get to do what I want to do on my land. If I want to paint my house a gaudy yellow color, I ought to be able to do that. But that's my house. The trouble we're dealing with here is we are talking about a resource that belongs to all of us, sort of, that's held individually. And there's not even we don't even have the language to talk about it properly. Because all this prime farmland, yeah, it makes food, but it also makes clean water and oxygen and all sorts of other things that we need. And we, the county, the state, the federal government, we don't know how to balance these two concerns yet. And I think that's a lot of the conflict that you see coming in here. When the farmland's gone, it's gone. And it goes away in little bits and pieces here and there and everywhere. And you don't know it until it's too late. I don't know how to do that. I will absolutely tell you, I know what the question is. I have no idea what the answer is. But I would submit to you that until we know what the answer is for areas of prime farmland, because where I look at the site, as near as I can figure, this is on, it's farmland of statewide importance. I looked at the site and said, wow, there's some really bad farmland there at the top of the thing. I hope they're putting it there, but they weren't because it's slopey and it's hard to build there. So I go back to what I said in the public comment earlier. We really don't understand how we ought to be doing this. And when that's the case, we're going to make a bad decision. If we because we have a balancing act here. This thing that's really important to all of us and private property rights, which are really important to some of us when it's our property. We've got to balance that. And if we get one of those right and one of those wrong, we fail. And it doesn't matter which one we get wrong. We got to get them both right. And that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of hard decisions and a lot of hard discussions. I think that's where we need to be spending our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Smith, Buffalo District.
I am adjoining landowner to this piece of property, but that's immature to what my feelings are right now. That is prime land. But we need to define what prime land is. Is it soil types? Is it contours? Around here, flat land means a lot more sometimes than soil types do. So if we get back to the point of where we can have this committee, local people come together, maybe we can define some more definitions of what prime farmland is. Because I know the Virginia Farm Bureau is having trouble with that also on a statewide, like what is prime farmland? And so, I really encourage you, to put this thing on hold until we can figure out just exactly what prime farmland is. And that sinkhole there, that really bothers me because, we're being taught sinkholes, stay away from sinkholes. 50 feet? No, we're talking about greater distance than that. And so why are we putting a solar panel? But there's some indications of pollution problems from these things. Why are we letting it be around a sinkhole? Just doesn't make common sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you. We have any other people here? You may come.
Cynthia Cater, South River District. I just want to say, sorry, I wasn't at the working meeting. I had to be at a granddaughter and grandson's soccer game because I would have really liked to heard what was discussed. I have a couple of questions. Number one, the elevation change that was mentioned, it's really steep. And we're talking about possible damage because of whatever goes on there. That runoff's going to go into the James River. There's 2 sinkholes there. We already know that the land may be problematic and we don't want to damage the water in the James River. We need to look at wildlife patterns through that area. Think about all the wildlife that goes through that area to get to the James River to feed off of it. The decommissioning cost for this problem, I mean, I haven't looked at their proposal, but I assume the decommissioning cost for this one is just as horrendous as the other one. Not very, very good. I just want to say that I really appreciate all the work that you guys have done on this. I mean, Steve Hart's talking about topsoil and everything. Here again, we're dealing with the topsoil. And I think we need ordinances in place countywide, because I think we're just going to ruin our county by these spot areas and having neighbors. I mean, the last one, that's breaking up a whole family. I mean, we forget about the relational issues. This is a whole family that's getting busted up by this one solar company. This is not quite right. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll be at the next working.
Thank you. Have anyone else who would like to speak? Yes.
Come up, state your name, magisterial district.
Bob Biersack. I live in the Cars Creek District. I'm the president of the board of directors of Rockbridge Conservation. And I'm struck by the experience of this evening. And the thing that it's taught us is something that I think we already knew, but now we've experienced in real life and we understand it better, which is the only way you can make decisions like this are the ways that Mr. Smith has suggested, Mr. Clark has suggested, to have a lot of community involvement and a lot of interaction and a lot of learning like has taken place this evening, to study these questions seriously and thoroughly, and then to develop a set of principles and an ordinance that really covers the gamut of these kinds of problems. We're happy to volunteer to be a part of that process. We don't have all the answers. We're not sure we have all the questions, but we're certainly interested in being engaged and being part of that process. It's a big challenge. It shouldn't fall only on your shoulders. It should be a community-wide effort, and we're happy to participate.
Thank you. Any other people that are here? Yes.
My name is Teresa Bullock. My wife Tracy spoke, and our son is here as well. We're very new to the area, about 2 years now. We live in Natural Bridge, right across from Mr. Ned's land. Our view is his cows. Our neighbors are cows, and we're very new to this life, but it's been a dream of ours for a long time. We have 3 goats, and we learned that walnuts stay in your hands, and it's we're just really new to it, and I don't want to tell Mr. Ned what to do with his land, but that is part of why we purchased the land, was to pass it on to our son and have that view and be able to run our business and just to be surrounded by this place that you'll like been lucky enough to live in your whole lives. And I want to, from a selfish standpoint, preserve all of that as well without changing that scenery. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do think I support everybody that has lived here forever and has done the research and is calling for you to like look into ordinances and have continuity around installing these different solar farms and everything. So that would be what I would throw my support towards.
Thank you.
Maybe spell your last name for me. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else that would like to speak present? Okay. Do we have anybody online or on the phone? Do we have anybody on the phone tonight?
We do have one person via phone. With that being said, I'll give this opportunity for anyone to raise their hand. While we're waiting on this, I also would like to point out that we have had a written letter from Mr. Tom Stanley, as well as the last, and forwarded that to the Planning Commission. Of course, Mr. Tom Stanley is the extension agent for the office, and he has defined the purpose of those two letters were defined on which ones were considered prime farmland, and he has determined which ones are prime farmland and which ones are soils of statewide significance. I will remind everyone that soil of statewide significance is not considered prime farmland according to Mr. Stanley. So with that being said, looking back over here, I don't see any hands raised, so I'll turn the floor back over to the Planning Commission.
Okay. With no further public comment, we are going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Questions, discussion?
So we're back to where we were before. And I think we've got to go down to the path to have ordinances so that we're not saying no or recommending, denying, deny. It doesn't deal with the property rights, et cetera. That we should have some
Set of uniform standards and
Right,
rules,
right.
basically.
And I don't know how we would proceed on this, to get there.
That's kind of my
Ms.
thing
Hennis,
too. I'm
if I
thinking we
may
kind of put the cart before the horse because we're.
Ms. Hennis,
Yeah.
may I comment, please?
Please, yes.
You're obligated to follow the current regulations.
Okay.
And as has been the case with previous applications, there is nothing that you can't address through the special exceptions that wouldn't be addressed if you had an ordinance in place. There is virtually no difference. If there's something you want to include as a condition, it can certainly be brought up for discussion and incorporated into the special exception conditions.
Yeah, I
But
think
you cannot deny a project because you don't have an ordinance.
understood. My issue with these conditions that, to arbitrarily say, okay, well, now we're going to say it needs to be a 300-foot setback. We haven't had a discussion to talk about. Should it be 200? Should it be 75? So we could address that, but it needs to be uniform moving forward, right?
No, that's not, in my opinion, respectfully,
It-
that is not
you
correct.
Go by what the land dictates in the given situation.
And that's the
That's what I just
great
said.
thing
I was
about
gonna say,
special
that's the exception,
exceptions.
yeah, right,
That's the
exactly.
special exception portion of the meeting.
So if we had an ordinance and this is kind of talking, we say we're going to have an ordinance and we're going to set rules and say, okay, it's not going to be 50 feet, it's going to be 100 feet or whatever. We're doing the same thing where we're basically setting an ordinance and for every property, it could be different.
That's
So,
what a special exception is.
right, but if we make an ordinance that says it's 100 feet and maybe this property, it only needs to be 50 and that one, it needs to be
That's right.
300. So,
If
you
you
know.
have it in an ordinance, then you're bound by those terms.
Exactly.
You have no latitude at all.
Right. I remember us having this discussion about that's the whole point of a special exception is to look at each property and say, does that make sense there? And
Mhm.
gotcha. You've been on this committee a long time,
Yeah, too long.
so you've got experience.
I think we're back where we were at on the last one as far as property values and quality of life for some folks. That's just the way I feel about it. I mean, these folks didn't move in here and buy into looking at a solar farm. If you've been there in the beginning, I could live with it. I could vote for it.
Close the public hearing.
Yes, we have.
Here's the applicant wanted to say something. Can we do that after our discussion or?
Right. Well, we do generally let them come back up and address any concerns, so we can do that. Do you want to have them come up now?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate everyone's comments tonight. I think a lot of what has been said, unfortunately did pertain to the prior applicant. There were many specific ones to ours, which I can address. First and foremost, we are not going to do or require any grading. We've actually consulted with our racking manufacturer, and they can pile drive the posts into the topography, the current topography. So we kind of checked that box off. Secondly, we are more than happy to work with the Planning Commission and the neighbors to make sure that this is installed, constructed, maintained in everyone's best interest. And I'm sorry we haven't met before, but we are more than happy to work with you to, sorry. The neighbor who spoke, who is concerned about visual impacts, who just moved here. We're more than happy to work with them, implement some screening even on their property if they deem that necessary. As far as I recall, that glare was addressed. So these solar panels are actually designed to absorb as much light as possible. They actually have less glare than a blade of grass. So I think that was important to note. And yeah, we are again happy to work with the Planning Commission to put forth a decommissioning bond that you all are comfortable with. So, and I believe that was all I had to address. Thank you very much, Rachel. I don't know if you had anything else to add.
Hi, not too much more to add, but to the Bullock family, we do have visual simulations that we can show you relative to where your home is. We can provide that to you after this. And just in general, everything that we have designed is designed towards the ordinance. In regard to the comment about the karst feature, it is a common feature in the area. There is no ordinance requirement buffering around it. We are implementing that 50-foot buffer on our own and have done so by the request of staff. So we've gone above and beyond the ordinance in certain areas and are willing to work with the neighbors and can provide y'all additional information. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anything here? Nothing further? I guess we are at the point where we need to decide on a motion, or we can continue this. I don't know what we would continue it for at this point. But
If we continue it, we're just going to be
back in the same spot, right?
chasing our tails.
Yeah, that's not good. Okay.
No. I'll make a motion. Recommend the Board of Supervisors that the special exception permit to develop a 3 megawatt AC solar project in agriculture and general uses A-2 and agricultural transition A-T zoning district per LDR section 603.03-9 and 603B.03-14 public utilities.
Discussion about the motion.
Sure.
Then I'm gonna eventually second it, but I'm gonna do it under the thinking that we've got an elected Board of Supervisors and that if they want to deny it, you know, they should deny it. If they want to approve it, let them approve it. I don't think we can sit here and say this is what the county should be. I think they should, and maybe this is the case, and the other one should be the case of the Board of Supervisors decide what they want. And so I will second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Again, opposed.
And we will recommend the denial. Okay, we are on to item number 7, Virginia Electric and Power Company, DBA Dominion Energy, application for a special exception permit for a storage of materials and equipment in Zone AE Hatch floodway of the special flood hazard area. The properties are located on the east side of River Road, Route 663.
So the next 3 public hearings are associated with the same project, essentially. The first public hearing is development of the floodway. I just feel beneficial to give a brief overview of the 3 coming up projects, special exceptions in front of us. The first one's for the development of the floodway. The second one is for a heliport, and the third one is for I apologize.
Second one was the transmission pole staging, and the third one is the-
public utilities. That would be the staging area for the overall project. With that being said, Virginia Electric and Power DBA as Virginia Electric and Power Company DBA Dominion Energy Virginia has made a special exception for a special exception permit for storage of materials and equipment in Zone AE Hatch floodway of the special flood hazard area. The properties are located on the east side of River Road, further identified as 663, approximately 1.8 miles, 1.58 miles west of the southern intersection of River Road. River Road's further identified again as 663, and Glasgow Highway 501. The properties are owned by Keith W. and Penny G. Holland and are further identified as tax map numbers 80-3-A, 108-3-A, 108-3-B, and 98-16-1. The total acreage of all 3 properties collectively is 69.14 acres. The properties are located in the agricultural zoning district. That would be the A2 zoning district, and are within the floodway overlay district, the flood hazard overlay district F1H per section 608-11.2-6 of the regulations. Storage of materials and equipment in Zone AE Hatched, again, floodway of the special flood hazard area or used by special exception. The property are located in Natural Bridge Magisterial District. Excuse me. Prior to turning the floor over to Ms. Carr, I'd like to just share my screen to get everyone oriented. I should have started with this. My apologies. So this is the GIS mapping. This would be the southern end of the intersection of River Road and Glasgow. Of course, there's 2 intersections of River Road and Glasgow Highway. So the properties are under consideration this evening are the large parcel here, and then 2 smaller slivers, if you will, all collectively, again, 69.14 acres per tax records. Pertaining to the floodplain on the property, first, I will turn on the Maury River. That would be the Maury River. And then as far as the flood zones go, what we're looking at is the yellow area on the map is Zone AE. That would be Zone AE Hatch, which is the floodway. That's the purpose of the zoning special exception application tonight. And then the purple traveling uphill, obviously, would be Zone AE unhatched. And they're both, to be clear, they're both part of the 100-year floodplain. Being the yellow and the purple are both part of the 100-year floodplain. And you can see up in this area, you have a slight brown sliver that is X500, 500-year floodplain. And then you have a smaller sliver, if you will, that is zone X, which is outside the 100-year floodplain. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Ms. Carr with Dominion Power representing the project. and I can pull your slides up as well.
While you're pulling that up, I'm going to get started, given the time. And I assume you all have your application packet. So you've got this project description. I won't go over why we're proposing this heliport and landing zone. My name's Lane Carr. I am a permitting specialist in Dominion Energy's electric transmission business unit. Thank you, Chris. When I spoke with you last week, you mentioned come prepared to show just a few slides about an evacuation plan because we are in the floodway district. I first just want to clarify that our proposal is for a temporary assembly and staging area for approximately 25 transmission line poles that we will be replacing. 5 of those in Rockbridge County, for which we received a previous special exception earlier this year, and a few more down in Amherst County. So again, just want to clarify, this is temporary. This is not anything permanent in this area. Our schedule is not 100% confirmed. We are still awaiting final permits, nor have we put this project out to bid yet. We like to have assurance that we're going to obtain all of our necessary permits before we put it out to bid so that our suppliers can submit accurate proposals to us. So we are still working on the schedule. But at this time, we would currently plan this project work for late fall 2024 into Q1 2025. So what that looks like in terms of the temporary time frame, we would come in and we would lay timber mats across approximately 10 acres of the parcel a few weeks prior to the arrival of the material, and about 2 weeks prior to flying. And then once the helicopter flying starts to deliver the poles to the project site, that would be pretty continuous until all the poles have been transported to the site, probably about 2 to 3 weeks. We are proposing to not do any grading. We're going to use timber mats to lay across this area, so we do not have to excavate any topsoil. We would tether the timber mats together and anchor them in place. That's very common practice for us. I just was going to show you a few pictures, representative pictures of some projects. Clearly, this is here in open water where these mats are anchored together and very stable. These mats are not cheap, so we are going to do everything to be sure that they cannot flow away. And there's just another representative picture there in the river. And this is quickly what the poles look like. So these poles would come in pieces. They would be assembled in 3 sections, 1, 2, and 3 there, and then they would be flown in each of those sections at a time over to the project site, just to give you an idea. And again, we're looking at about 25 of these to be staged temporarily at the proposed landing zone. We could enact hauling trucks and the needed equipment to remove material out of the area if we were notified by Chief Ramsey. I did get, Chris handed me this evacuation plan from the county this evening, and we've confirmed that we are fine with this. We can comply with that, no problem. We can also anchor structures as a second option to provide any assurance that those would not float away. These pole materials are about 5,000 pounds, so they're really heavy. Smaller equipment can be forklifted onto a truck and removed. As far as the fuel and the helicopter that would be staged at the site, it would be a mobile self-contained tanker truck that would be coming and going. So it would be coming to refuel the helicopter. It would be leaving to go refuel the truck itself. That could be easily removed. That tanker truck is self-contained. Helicopter would likely be staged at the landing zone when not flying and overnight. If the county would like us to not stage it there, we're open to putting that in our bid document so that that's not an option for our suppliers. And just want to let you know that we're committed to protecting the life and property downstream. We understand that is top priority, and we will work with the county on whatever requirements you would like to include in the special exception, and we can insert those into our upcoming bid document so our suppliers know what's expected ahead of time. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, quickly, Virginia Outdoors Foundation. Chris, you asked me to talk about this quickly. There is a conservation easement across the property. We met with VOF in March. We submitted the application in March. We met with them in April. In May, they confirmed that the project scope appears compatible with the terms of the open space deed of easement and granted conditional approval. We are waiting to sign the lease with the property owner until we've gone through the local permitting to be sure it's a go. at that point, I believe the VOF will grant the final approval. They're waiting for that final lease to be signed. I've got some coworkers on the line, some folks from my construction team. Any questions you have, perfectly happy to answer, or any comments from the public. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Chris, is this for all three?
No, ma'am, they're separate applications.
Okay. So this is for the storage of materials and equipment in the Zone AE Hatch floodway. So we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here physically to speak?
No one signed up, but we may have a gentleman or two in the office, people in the office. I apologize. I'd like to speak to Mr. Holland. You could. Baxter District.
Keith Holland, Buffalo District. So there is a conservation easement on this. I spoke with Mr. Hibbets. The easement's held by the Virginia Outdoor Foundation. I spoke with Mr. Hibbets today, and they have run through all their committees and staff, and they've approved it. It might want to tweak it a little bit, but he said it didn't see a problem. So I think from a safety issue, this is a unique location from point that you can go up, fly south for about a half mile, fly east, and you'll never go over a house or a dwelling or any building. And it's very few places in the county that you can accomplish that.
Thank you. Have anyone else that would like to speak that is here? Okay, do we have anybody by computer or phone?
We still have several people here. If there's anyone who'd like to make a public comment during the public hearing section for this particular use in the floodway, please use the raise your hand button. Not seeing any. Turn the floor back to the.
Okay, with no further comments, we'll close the public hearing and we'll bring it back to the board. Any questions from anyone? here? Keep saying the board, commission.
How are you anchoring everything down? You say you're gonna anchor it. Some way you do it.
My folks on here?
It should be unmuted. Yes. ma'am.
Okay. John Perry, did you hear the question? Or Chris O'Neill?
Mr. Perry has his hand
Oh,
up.
he does. Okay, there he goes.
Mr. Perry, you are on mute, but once you unmute, you're able to speak, I believe.
Want to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm John Perry. I am a construction consultant there with Dominion Energy's Electric Transmission Construction Group there. To be clear, the mats that Lane presented in the photograph are not probably the exact type and kind that we will use for this particular site. The ones you saw in the demonstration are actually in a flowing river, their river course, where we had to keep those on site, but our task was to get across the river with equipment there. It was a tidal river where the water moves up and down. The exact system of tethering will be a component addressed in our bid, but there's two different options to do that. One is anchoring and stringing there. Essentially we have either helical, or we also call them platypus type anchors. Which a substantial number of those are just driven into the ground. They can be removed later. But in the instance of a flood, most of the forces of the flood water are in a horizontal plane. These anchors are anchored into the soil, where it would take a significant amount of vertical force to pull them out of the ground, but they withstand very high horizontal forces there. Those would be driven into the ground, and then a system of cables is attached and strung through the mats. The exact attachment to the mats is dependent on the type and kind of mats that we use. The other option that we have is just basically that we have a set of bars that look like rebar, where you bend the rebar into the form of almost like a staple. It's a U form that's driven through the mat itself that anchors it to the ground. Again, the flood forces are typically horizontal. We have numerous projects across the state and even into North Carolina that go through tidal swamps and areas out on the far east that are prone to routine flooding there. And These mats cost, depending on the type, we're looking at $500 to $600 a piece. The scope of this to mat 10 acres, we're talking about a cost of maybe $1.5 to $1.7 million there. It's not an investment that we're willing to let get away from us, get down the river and endanger the public by any means. Again, I wish I had the exact specific method and means of anchoring those. And then of course there are variable methods, which I just discussed. As we have not put the project out for bid yet, I don't have the exact details, but it will be incorporated into the bid documentation.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Okay, any other questions?
The old towers that are coming down,
Yes.
I mean, they're gonna get the land, they're gonna get dropped on that property.
Yes.
How long are they gonna lay there? Because to me, they represent more of an issue with flooding than new monopoles, because these things have got a lot of areas for debris and trash to catch in and actually be pulled downstream.
Right.
If depending on the flood. But I know how it is when it floods, it's pretty rough sometimes.
Yeah, so with the whole time frame of looking at this, using this temporary yard for 45 to 60 days, those materials would not be stored there any longer than 60 days max. And I'd imagine, folks, help me out, construction team, once we bring those old towers back and stage them there, John Perry's got his hand up. Just gonna click right back on him.
Oh, I don't think I actually ever lowered it, but essentially the existing towers, and we have a variety of structures on this line. We have both towers and we have wooden poles, which are an H-frame configuration. There's some of the wooden poles are so old that they dated into the 1920s, and some of those have been replaced with metal poles. So we have a combination of wood poles and metal poles. As well as the steel lattice towers. They're called Blawnox towers after the company that made them. Blawnox made radio towers back in the 1920s and has long since defunct and out of business. But the towers would have to be cut on site before they can be lifted out, just given the weight. And essentially what happens is we would have some storage container, basically dumpsters, to recycle the steel in scrap there. Once the towers arrive back to the site, they would be cut up into pieces that fit into the dumpster, loaded off, removed off site for recycling there. My rough guess for that process, given that the number of towers on the project, is that's likely a 3-week period to have everything off site and removed.
Sounds like you'll be disassembling, cutting up and disposing of daily is what it kind of sounds like.
Likely, yep.
The wood poles that come off of it would pose probably more of a threat than anything floating downstream right now, from what I'm hearing. The mats are anchored. And they're going to have some of the monopoles on top of them, along with whatever anchoring you put in place.
And the wood poles that are scrap.
Wood poles that are scrapped are the ones that could float downstream, so they would need to be hauled off fairly quickly, in my mind.
Yes.
Yes, and to give you an approximation of the time frame for this specific project, the initial outage occurs in the fall of 2024 there, which would be during the outage when the line is actually turned off and taken out of service there. The first step that we have is to remove the towers, remove the structures and so forth. And then we would go about the process of actually out on site on the line itself, installing foundations, which will take a period of months. Once all the foundations are installed, we begin the second process, which is bringing in the new structures, assembling them and flying them out to the site. There, again, two sort of separate operations there. In terms of the conceptuality of that, there we have waiting to get a bid package out and determine whether we install the matting in the fall disassemble the existing line, and it's not going to be needed for a time frame until we get to start the assembly of the new line and transporting those out. We rent those mats, whether we rent them or own them. Their wooden mats have a lifespan there, and they last so many days in ground contact before the wood rots and deteriorates and becomes no longer safe. So we try to minimize the amount of time that we have the mats on the ground exposed to the weather, stacked up and so forth there. I would look at the option, if we had to, of uninstalling the mats so that they're not there. Again, I think in the special flood zone, your big flood hazard is usually associated with tropical weather there. It's probably going to be minimal over the course of the winter. The greatest risk is in the fall of those tropical systems that come in, late season there. Again, that's the stage where we'd really have to monitor what we're doing there. The lead time on our pole structures to the new structures, it takes a couple of years in advance to specially order these things. They're custom made. This is unlike anything that Dominion Energy has ever done on a line. We designed the construction of this project to minimize clearing and long-term visual impacts across the mountains of the traditional big roads, large equipment and stuff that's typically used on a transmission line. It's our first cut at this out of the gate. So some of this is new to us, and that hopefully explains some of what we don't have exactly pinned down.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or concerns to bring up?
Will this storage yard just be used for the phase of the rebuild project for the helicopter install,
Yes.
or is it for everything?
No, just for those 25 structures in the Forest Service.
You have plans for the conventional replacement, or where that will be, or?
So there's a few further south, outside the forest. There's more conventional foundations where you need the concrete trucks and the big pole trucks to be able to access those places. Yeah. This is really call it a hybrid construction approach, which is detailed in the project description. Like John said, to minimize impacts. Lighter on the land.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, with no other questions, do we have a proposal or a motion?
I'm good. So one thing to discuss, of course, you have, like every other, like normal, we have proposed conditions, approval, other proposed conditions or motions, I should say. With that being said, would it be appropriate for me to read the motions or the conditions?
Well, if somebody makes a motion, they're going to read them, aren't?
We need to add one as well, if
Okay,
you'd like to talk about that.
okay. What do you want to add?
So sections 802.03-10 of the land development regulations consistent with state law says a special exception must be put in effect 6 months after the date of the permit issued. That would be the Board of Supervisors issuing the permit if they so deem to, unless otherwise provided in the permit itself. So we've adhered to this always. Obviously, other special exception conditions, we've put in some time frame, project implementation of the project by blank, project completion by blank. And so that's very important for us to have that communication now to say, okay, what's the time period that we're talking about and what are y'all comfortable with, including the ordinance?
It's like
Because
it
if we
was
don't include
fall
it,
of 24. I mean, can you need to say like October of 2024 to May of 2025?
we want to, as always, we want to have some buffer period in there, and what I've written down is implementation of the project by December of 2024. But I'd really refer to Ms. Carr and others on the team to see what time frame we're talking about.
So how large can the time frame be? Can we do a 6-month?
I believe so, yes. I mean,
Timeframe?
it
Okay.
just says, unless otherwise provided in the permit itself, and that would be associated with the conditions.
Right. Okay. So Bob Humphreys, the current outage schedule and the schedule you suggested at this time, our best estimation is fall 2024, Q1 2025. Is there a 6-month period in there that you'd feel comfortable committing to at this time? Unmute him. Allow to talk. Okay. Ask. Okay.
believe we can hear you now, Mr.
Bob.
Humphries. Can you hear us, Mr. Humphries? Mr. Perry has his hand up as well, or is that left over?
I raised it again, if you can hear me,
I-
just because we could not hear Bob.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. The wild card that we have is that the project is dependent on U.S. Forest Service permitting there with a myriad of environmental hoops and hurdles and conditions that we have to jump through. At this particular time, we don't have the permits to move forward with the Forest Service. The project was up for public comment, which the public comment closed last month there, and the approval process is expected to go into early next year, perhaps January or so. Could extend a little bit longer there. With that being said, there are two stages to the project. The first stage is entirely in Bedford and Amherst counties, which that stage of the work has to have Forest Service permitting. And we have a hard deadline that we have to have that rebuilt prior to taking out the line between our Balcony Falls substation and the Cushaw substation, both of which the Balcony Falls substation is in Amherst County or in Rockbridge County, and the Cushaw substation is in Amherst County, which supplies the Cushaw Electric Power Dam. Our whole schedule is depending on getting that section of line built, which is sort of depending on Forest Service permitting arriving in time to do that. So with that respected there, we would like, consideration or some option to adjust the schedule accordingly, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I would recommend, I think the only path forward, because again, this is consistent with state law, the Rockbridge County Code, land development regulations is consistent by state code. I would recommend having some language in the current ordinance, if you will, or this is obviously a recommendation to the board, but the board would propose an ordinance, and it'd be, in my opinion, it would be beneficial for all to have some sort of implementation project completion date, and had a date for both of those. And if needed, it is the same process, to be clear, but if needed, we would come back and amend. I think we have the ability to amend that particular condition at a later.
Perfect.
If you say
If
December
I
of
can-
24, can you do it earlier? Like if they're ready in October of 24, it's just kind of like,
Yeah,
I was just thinking if you go December to June,
It's
you could do it
project
October to April.
Absolutely. Project implementation, implementation of project by blank date and project
could do it
completion
earlier.
by. So
Right.
if you all are on fast tracking it, you have no problem at all.
Yes, if you can hear me, I can give you the exact dates we're willing to propose at this time. which
Absolutely.
is
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
October 15th, 2024 to March 15th, 2025.
To be clear, completion date by March 15th, 2025.
Yes, sir.
And the first date, I apologize, was October.
October 15th, 2024.
We got you. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And I do think it'd be beneficial for the record, for the public, if you will, to read, obviously, draft number condition is compliance with approved emergency plan dated 10/11/23. I think it would be beneficial to review that.
Yes, that's 5 months. What he gave you. 6.
Yep.
Give him April, middle April. No more winter will come along, spring.
Okay, do you want me to read these conditions for the
Yes, ma'am.
public? Okay, number 1, substantial compliance with the site plan titled temporary helicopter. Am I reading the right one? Sorry.
You are, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Titled temporary helicopter landing zone and pole assembly area prepared by Stantec. 2, compliance with approved emergency management plan dated 10/11/23. 3, approval contingent on final VDOT erosion and sediment control and health department approvals. project will begin by October 15th, 2024 and end by April 15th, 2025.
But more particular, the last one, the language that I have is implementation of the project by October 15th, 2024, and project completion by April 15th, 2025.
Implementation of the project will begin by October 15th and completion of the project will be by April 15th, 2025. Okay? Any further discussion or about any of these? Okay? You want to read it?
Yep. Okay. I make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the special exception permit for the storage of materials and equipment in Zone AE hatched floodway of the special flood hazard area be approved with the following conditions: substantial compliance with the site plan titled Temporary Helicopter Landing Zone and Pole Assembly Area prepared by Stan Tech. Number 2, compliance with approved emergency management plan dated 10/11/2023. Number 3, approval contingent on final VDOT erosion and sediment control and health department approvals. Number 4, implementation of the project by 10/15/2024 and project completion by 3.
We ended up changing that to 4 to make it 6
Oh,
months. So
which one?
April 15th of 2025.
Oh, okay. Completion by April 15th, 2025.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, so we'll recommend approval on that to the board. So we are on to number 8.
Yes, and this will be verbatim. Obviously, these are all the essentially the same project. They did require 3 separate public hearings. I suggested, staff suggested, if you will, that we run them concurrently. The first one was obviously for the use in the floodway. I think that one we put that one first because it's overwhelming, use in the floodway issue. The second one, for the record, I'll go ahead and say Virginia Electric and Power Company, Dominion Energy, has made an application for a special exception permit to develop a transmission pole staging and assembly area that is considered a public utility. Property is located on the east side of River Road, 1.58 miles west of the southern intersection of River Road and Glasgow Highway. Properties are owned by Keith W. and Penny G. Holland. And are further identified as tax map numbers 1083-A, 1083-B, and 9816-1, 69.14 acres total per tax records. Property is located in the agricultural and general use districts A2 per section 603.03.9 of the regulations. Public utilities are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. Property is located in the magisterial district. And so with that being said, I'll turn over the floor to Ms. Carr. She has no other further. It's the same one. I do apologize for interrupting you going up there. I passed out this draft motion first and it was the incorrect one. So that's why I was scrambling to get the correct one back. With
Okay.
that, I'll turn the floor back over to the chair.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone to speak on this?
No one is signed up. I know that from going out there earlier, but we'll recognize anyone at this time.
Okay, do we have anybody on the computer or phone?
If anyone, Mr. Humphreys has his hand raised up, I will allow him to talk. Mr. Humphreys, that you do have your hand raised. You can unmute if you like.
Took his hand down.
Oh, you took your hand down. Fair enough.
Okay,
Trials and tribulations with the Zoom.
so we have no further comments. We will close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Any questions or comments? I think we've kind of gone over all this, so.
This will require the same implementation project completion date.
Okay, and we'll put the same dates in there.
Yes.
Okay. Go back and find your notes. Okay. Would you like to make the motion this time?
Make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the special exception permit to develop public utilities and agricultural and general uses A2 zoning districts per LDR section 603.03-9 be approved with the following conditions. 1, substantial compliance with the site plan titled Temporary Helicopter Landing Zone and Pole Assembly Area prepared by Stantec. 2, compliance with approved emergency management plan dated 10/11/2023. 3, approval contingent on final VDOT, erosion and sediment control and health department approvals. And 4, project implemented by 10/15/2024 and completion by 4/15/2025.
We have a motion. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion passes and we'll recommend to the board approval. Number 9, Virginia Electric and Power Company, DBA Dominion Energy Virginia, application for a special exception permit to develop a private heliport. The properties are located on the east side of River Road, Route 663.
Bear with me here. I think I have a agenda report on this one as well. Yes. Third and final for the Hollands and Virginia Power. Virginia Electric and Power Company, DBA Dominion Energy, has made an application for a special exception permit to develop a private heliport. Properties are located on the east side of River Road, 1.58 miles on the southern intersection of River Road. Properties owned by Keith W. and Penny G. Holland, and further identified as tax map number 1083-A, 1083-B, and 98-16-1. Property is located in the agricultural and general use district per section 603.03-4 of the regulations. Private non-commercial landing strips or heliports are used by special exception in the agricultural and general use district. With that, I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Carr. Ms. Carr has no comments on this one. This is the same properties as last. This is for the final use of the heliport.
Okay. At this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically here that would like to speak on this?
There's no one signed up at this time, but we'll recognize anyone.
Okay. Do we have anyone on the computer or by phone that would like to speak?
If there's anyone on the computer, please utilize the raise hand button now. Not seeing any, I will turn the floor back over to the chair.
Okay. With no further comment, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Don't think we have any other questions here. Make a motion.
Motion to recommend the board of supervisors that the special exception permit to develop a heliport in the agriculture and general uses district A-2 zoning districts per LDR section 603.03-4 be approved with the following conditions. Substantial compliance with the site plan titled temporary helicopter landing zone and pole assembly area prepared by Stantec. Compliance with approved emergency management plan dated 10/11/2023. Approved contingent on final VDOT erosion and sediment control and health department approvals. And implementation.
It's late.
Anyway. Oh, God, it's been too long a day. Plan to be implemented by 10/15/2024, completion date 4/15/2025.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, we'll recommend approval to the board. Thank you. We are on to number 10, John E. and Alexandra L. Byers, 499 South River Road, Buena Vista, Virginia, 24416. Application for a special exception permit for the construction of an accessory structure in Zone AE hatched floodway in the special flood hazard area. The properties are located on the north side of South River Road, Route 608.
Yes, well, Mr. and Mrs. Byers are with us via Zoom. We do appreciate you hanging in with us until 10:23 to get to your public hearing. With that being said, John E. and Alexandra L. Byers, 499 South River Road, Buena Vista, Virginia, 24416, have made an application for a special exception permit for the construction of accessory structure in Zone AE hatched floodway, the special flood hazard area. The properties are located on the north side of South River Road, further identified as 608, approximately 1.12 miles west of the intersection of South River Road and Old Buena Vista Road. So most of the time, you always take a left on South River Road, you would be taking a right coming in from Lexington to go on that side of South River Road. The properties are owned by John E. and Alexandria L. Byers, above address and further identified as tax map number 77-3-3A, 77-3-3B, 77-3-3C, and 77-3-3D1, totaling a total of 2.84 acres per tax records. The property are located in the agricultural zoning district and are within the floodway district per section 608.11-26. It's actually 3 of the land development regulations. Accessory residential structures such as yards, gardens, play areas, and pervious loading areas are used by special exception. And then it goes on to say 608.11-2, permitted uses by special exception. Number 1 in that particular ordinance is structures except for manufactured homes accessory to the uses and activities of section 1 above. So essentially what this application is for, in your application, you have the application, of course, you have a map of the property, you have a written description of plans from the buyers, a map of the property, and then another map showing the proposed tool garden shed location. It is within the floodway, and you also have several pictures of the existing property. Because this is the floodway, it's the most restrictive zoning category pertaining to flood in Rockbridge County. This type of shed is a use by special exception. This type of development, I should say, is a use by special exception.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
There's no one signed up. We would certainly like to recognize anyone in attendance currently.
Okay. Do we have anybody on the computer or? phone?
Yes, we have Jeb Byers. You are, and this wouldn't be a citizen comment period. He's
Oh,
the
right.
applicant. We
Yeah.
jumped the gun there, but
Yeah,
it's
sorry
10:30.
about
I
that.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. Mr. Byers, Jeb, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Slayton, and thank you, Neil Whitmore, for helping us through the project. Commissioners, we would like to build a tool shed on our property. It's will be fewer than 250 square feet. It's on the highest point of our property. It's on the same spot where we previously had a shed and garage that was taken down many years ago. So it's a smaller replacement of a previous structure. All of our property is in the floodplain, including our home. This project will be stick-built on a concrete slab by licensed local contractors, Rockbridge County contractors. We will comply with code 2.711, 2.72, and et cetera, to ensure that breakaway flood panels and vents are included in the project that meet or exceed the code. The building will be 52 feet from the roadway and 22 feet from the side property line next to our neighbor. I've spoken to all of our neighbors, none of whom object. I'll be glad to provide statements from them if you require.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. Okay, so I guess now we're going to open the public hearing. And we do not have anybody signed up. Do we have anybody by phone or computer?
If there's anyone like to speak via computer, now would be the appropriate time if you'd like to raise your hands. Not seeing any, turn the floor back over to the Planning Commission.
Okay, with no further comments, we're going to bring it back to, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Commission, keep calling it the board.
The only thing that I heard, he said it would not exceed 250 square feet, and he's got the application for 220 square feet.
We can handle that in conditions. The application is for the construction. In fact, in the proposed conditions you have in front of you, there was some leeway there, if you will. And we said there's three proposed conditions. One is accessory structure not to exceed 260 square feet. The second one, when storm warnings are issued, all hazardous materials / chemicals, i.e. fuels, oils, pesticides shall be removed and relocated outside the floodway. And number 3, approval contingent upon Rockbridge County Building Department approval. It's my understanding that Mr. Byers is talking, already had preliminary conversations with the building department and understands has a basic understanding rather, of the requirements from the building code.
So if his house is in the floodway also, how's he gonna remove the oil and all the stuff out of the flood zone? I mean, like, is he gonna take it to another location out of the flood zone?
Let me look at a map here. Is the entire property in the floodway?
That's what he said.
I apologize. Let me see here.
Does he just have to put it in his truck and drive it to?
Around, take it over to his neighbors.
Expect you to sit around and watch it all flood.
Right.
It is. The entire property is in the floodway. So if you want to make a stipulation that's removed the house has been there quite some time, more so than the.
Right. Just wanted to make sure it was something that was understood, feasible, able for him to do. Okay. Any other questions here? Okay,
Motion.
go for it.
I make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the special exception permit for the construction of an accessory structure in Zone AE hatched floodway in the special flood hazard area be approved with the following conditions. Number 1, accessory structure not to exceed 260 square feet. Number 2, when storm warnings are issued, all hazardous materials / chemicals, i.e. fuels, oils, pesticides, shall be removed and relocated outside the floodway. Number 3, approval contingent upon Rockbridge County Building Department approval.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll recommend to the board approval. Thank you to the buyers.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you for hanging in there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your patience throughout the evening.
Okay, we are now on to item number 11, comprehensive plan update discussion.
So we are still plugging away on the community facilities chapter. I think we have a couple outstanding items to go on that. With that being said, we haven't had recent conversations since last planning commission. We have not had any conversations with the CSPDC on where they are with the transportation chapter, but we could certainly have them come in. They were part of the agreement is they would come in and chat with you, and that might be as early as next month. We can check on that. I think their time frame was definitely the first quarter of 2024. Of course, our original goal was get it done by the end of this year. With that being said, I think I said at the last planning commission meeting, that was easier to say in March, get it done before the end of the year. But we are still fully committed to it. The next chapter, as you know, is a big chapter, is a land use chapter. And we will start putting that on the agenda and plugging away on that as well. Would encourage y'all, part of the land use chapter is not only language. There's been some discussion tonight about the text in the land use chapter, but a lot of it also is the mapping. So I would encourage y'all as individual planning commission members, get with your supervisors and even we can set up appointment if y'all want to come in individuals, look at the current zoning, look at the current land use mapping. We can start doing that individually as well. And I would certainly, I would encourage that because that will further propel it forward.
Okay, thank you. Number 12 is Community Development Committee update.
I'm going to refer to Mr. Kramer on that. I'm joking when I say that, but I reached over to Vivica and said, what did we summarize what we talked about? She said, I wasn't here. I said, oh man, I'm lost now. But with that being said, I mean, we always have a good positive discussion. I think most of it was what the previous action of the planning commission and what was upcoming at the board of supervisors level.
It was wicked quiet.
Okay.
Is that when I had jury duty as well? I might have had jury duty.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it was a quick one.
Great. I've heard a lot of positive coming back from people that have been there that said they really felt like it was
Absolutely
beneficial. So
with that being said, we've had a frequent absent, Mr. Sean Watkins. He has not officially resigned yet. I have talked to Supervisor Lewis on providing a replacement or finding a replacement, I should say. That is in the works. With that being said, Mr. Watkins does sit on the Community Development Committee as well until he officially resigns. If there's anyone, Mr. Kramer's the other person, if there's any other three that would like to join us, consider that we do need another member of the Planning Commission. And I think they are very beneficial.
When is that
It is
meeting?
the third Monday of the month at 12 o'clock.
Okay.
So if y'all can think about that and
My
let us know.
schedule. Thank you. Okay. With
That's
that,
the last official business on the thing with the work session this afternoon. I appreciate everyone's time. It was a very long today. Obviously, it's 10:35. But with that being said, I would like to set another work session next month. I'm not going to encourage it. Again, I talked about a good idea at the time. I would not encourage it being the same day as the Planning Commission, just for staff level workload, that type of thing. It was obviously difficult to get everything together and have this many public hearings.
Right.
With that being said, would y'all like to have a work session the day before, the day after? We also can converse. I think it'd be appropriate to talk about it and see when y'all want to have your next
email,
work session.
yeah, I think that'd be a good idea if somebody wants to, I like the idea of doing it the day before.
Okay.
That way that's just my opinion, but.
And that certainly works with staff. If y'all would like to set that tentative date, we could set a tentative date for 4th. Does that need a motion, Ms. Huffman, or just consensus to set a work session? Obviously,
That should have a vote.
okay.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion?
And I can get a calendar out if needed. Oh, I think we're off that day. Let's see here. That would be the next regular, yep, it's election day. The next regular planning commission is on the 8th. We are closed. The building's closed on the 7th. With that being said, we could certainly do Monday. That is not a Board of Supervisors meeting day. The first meeting in November would be the 13th. So if y'all would prefer to do it on Monday, the 6th, y'all tell me the time and we will be prepared.
Making the motion, you guys make the time.
I'm flexible anytime. You guys said it.
If y'all like to do it early in the day, if y'all like to do it later in the day, it's completely up to y'all.
You think? Earlier? Oh,
No,
yeah.
right. Yeah, it needs to be later, just so you can finish your work day and then.
After work for hours.
4 o'clock work well, later than 4. We could say 6 o'clock.
That good for you, Robert? 6 o'clock? Yeah.
Plan on obviously 2 hours to 6 to 8 o'clock. I mean, it can vary, but okay.
Okay.
If we could get a motion to
You make a
schedule.
motion.
I make a motion that we have our next work session on Monday, November 6th at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect.
Opposed? No. Okay. And now we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Quick on that.
Appreciate everybody's time.
Thank
You
you
all.
very much, Mr. Slade. Very